we're all here for different reasons, and I feel like my purpose is to disrupt, to shake things up a little bit, and to really empower and enable others that are really doing the work on the ground. And so what is it that I'm doing in my work that maybe I can train others to do so that they can be more impactful and I can go back and just garden?
That was Nicole Masters, and you're listening to The Regenerative Journey. From wherever we are, we acknowledge the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia, recognising their continuing connection to this land, its waterways, the stars in the skies since time immemorial. We pay our respects to the elders, knowledge holders, and to all the generations of First Nations peoples who have nurtured their unceded sovereign lands for over 80,000 years and continue to do so today.
G'day, I'm your host Charlie Arnott, an 8th generational Australian regenerative farmer. And in this podcast series, I'll be diving deep and exploring my guests' unique perspectives on the world so you can apply their experience and knowledge to cultivate your own transition to a more regenerative way of life.
Welcome to The Regenerative Journey with your host Charlie Arnott.
G'day, welcome back to The Regenerative Journey and episode 2 of the season 7. Before I launch into our guest this week, I just want to thank again and acknowledge Highland Beef as our show sponsors for season 7. It's the second season in a row. Very much appreciate their support. There'll be plenty of discussions with them along the way in this current season, and events to announce and a few other cool things that's going to be happening with our collaborators, Highland Beef. If you don't know what they do, check out Highland Beef Pastoral, their website, and also, again, if you don't know, they essentially place young livestock, cattle, on their member farmers' farms to fatten on grass, and then they supply that beef to discerning and hungry and appreciative customers in the United States. It's a fantastic system. I just love the fact that our beautiful quality beef is being appreciated by those overseas, because the reality is about 80% of the beef produced in Australia does go overseas. So the higher proportion of that can be grass fed and finished, I think that's a really good thing. So what the other great announcement, and you'll be hearing it you would have heard on the previous episode and ensuing episodes, is our very exciting launch of our webinar series, which is Your Regenerative Journey. It's called Your Regenerative Journey. It's over 8 weeks. There's a big blurb in this episode somewhere in the middle there. You'll hear all about it. But we're very excited about that. We've got some amazing experts from around Australia and an international one as well, Nicole Masters, and we're very, very excited to have them on board and helping to you to continue or start your own regenerative journey over those 8 weeks, virtual webinars and resources and content that you can access on a platform, and culminating in a farm tour on the 13th of October. So if you're interested, get on to charliearnott.com.au on the events page and grab your tickets now. Now to Nicole. It was such a lovely opportunity that we had to sit. She had done, I think it was 3 weeks of just complete madness and busyness in Australia. She hadn't been here for probably 3 years, since I think just before COVID. And so she came back. She had a series of courses and workshops and so on, of one of which I attended, her last one, a leadership course at Braidwood at Martin Royd's property there, and at Tombara, and lucky to be there with Nicole and about 40 or so other people. And also the day after, we sat down and had a really good yarn. It was interesting because I might have mentioned this somewhere. Oh, no, I probably didn't mention it actually in the interview. But before we turned on the record button, she said, "Oh, we're not really going to talk about my life too much, are we?" I sort of went, "Oh, well, that's pretty much what this is all about." Anyway, it was quite funny. We had a really long and wonderful yarn. It's quite long, this one. And the interesting thing is we didn't actually talk about soil very much, probably 10 or 15 minutes. And it felt more of an obligation, given she is the soil siren, to include some soils chats. But we had lovely chats about indigenous pyramids, ancient civilizations, different realms, all sorts of crazy, wonderful things relating to food, to farming, to health of humans and the environment. We talked about some of her exciting new projects. But you'll just have to listen to it to get the full download of what she's up to, what she's been up to, and please enjoy as much as I did recording it, listening to Nicole Masters now on the regenerative journey. Beautiful as he sounds. You know, that's a medlar, this tree.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just trying to impress you with my horticultural
Do it.
background. No, it's just a beautiful tree. I noticed it, and it's got those little berries, and they blet, so they go brown, sort of green, yellow, brown, and then when they get soft, you collect them and you put them in a tray out the back of the house or somewhere, and not in direct sun, and then they rot, and then you can use, and then they, like a persimmon.
And then you get drunk on them, or?
No, they're not. I don't think they become like ferment. They just sort of,
Rot.
Bled, I guess, rot.
Yeah.
And then you can make your jellies and pastes and everything. They are the most exquisite thing. There you go. First minute, you're already giving everyone a lesson on meddlers. Nicole Masters.
And you don't need to impress me.
Okay, I'll tick that box.
Pressure off.
Okay, I'll just tick that note in my little book there.
It
Impress
was
Nicole.
number one on your list. Yeah,
It was. We're sorted. I think after some a bit of pissing around and moving our table, we've settled. Nicole Masters, welcome to the regenerative journey, and welcome to the garden here at Jillamatong, just outside Braidwood.
Yeah, we couldn't have picked a better spot.
It is beautiful, isn't it?
It's beautiful.
Martin Royds, beautiful man, the years. Second interview I've done here, so
cool.
I know. Don't feel like
not number one.
Is it the bridesmaid or whatever it is? No,
I'm a little bit like that. Yeah, it's fine.
Marie Lowe's. So it was actually 3 years ago. It was 2020, and it was just after the bushfires. A couple of months after, and Marie and I sat in the garden here and had an wasn't it? And so we just for the viewers and the listeners who I won't even touch that video because it's going to just bugger it up. I won't do a spin round, but it's
very beautiful.
You want to sort of describe? I don't know what we're looking at and the significance of that, please.
Well, it's a stunning time of the year. I think we're seeing all the colours change with the non-native, new natives trees, and then we're looking down into this, it's not a super deep valley, to where Martin's been putting in the leaky weirs. You can see all the water and the bird life and the diversity, and then up against what is, I have no idea, a very, very old volcano. What do you think that was?
Yeah, I think so. I have been going down a few rabbit holes about indigenous pyramids. Not necessarily in Australia, but elsewhere.
Well,
Amazon.
I didn't want to say that, but that would make sense, right? And then you think about the significance of this property that is really drawing a lot of attention internationally. We were just filming a documentary here with a crew that are traveling around the world looking at what different innovations are arising, and they were very interested in what Martin's doing. And there's a lot of properties I go to that are doing some really significant things, and there are pyramids near them, all of them.
What countries can you tell?
North America is where I've been based these days. So North America, New Zealand isn't covered in these things, but significant landforms. Yeah. And
that is like a widely known fact, or is it just like a few people know and kind of don't talk about it, or why don't we know more about them? Why don't we learn about the pyramids in North America at school?
Oh, wow. Well, it is one of these new discoveries, and I think there's so much going on right now. If you look at what's on Netflix and documentaries, and some of that's way out there, and I think sometimes we as humans look for patterns that maybe just reaffirm our own bias. But in my view, there is some significant rocks in America that are not natural formations, that people are investigating now, and it's starting to come to the surface. So I think in some circles it's been very well known, but if you ever come to America, you've got to come and see the megaliths of Montana.
That's on my list already.
Extraordinary.
I think it's fascinating. So Netflix, you're referring to catastrophic, was it Apocalypse?
Ancient Apocalypse.
That's it, with, what's that chappie's name? Pom, I can't remember his
Rather
name
not
now.
talk about it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Don't like it?
No, well, I mean, I have friends that have worked with him and friends that have, people that are kind of in those circles, but
Just a hint?
I just feel like if we are working in this space, we still live in the physical realm, and we still need to really bring our awareness that there's different ways of seeing the world, but also that we are not discounting other viewpoints. And there's something in that documentary where I feel like there's different views that aren't being shared. And if you're a journalist, then you're a journalist, and a journalist presents a broader view, so you can have a conversation. And I don't know. I don't really want to talk about it. I feel like these are the opportunities for us to be bringing things to the surface, to have wider discussions than just push our own personal agendas.
Fair call.
And I'm not saying I disagree with a whole lot of stuff in it. I'm not saying I agree with a whole lot of it. I'm just saying let's sorry.
Mosquito.
Oh,
what's a mosquito doing around in like 15-degree weather
Isn't it amazing?
in Braidwood?
It must be water.
Almost the water.
Yeah. And I shouldn't kill him.
No, he's fine. He's limping away. Not really. Just before we leave that topic, which is fascinating,
yes.
and I don't disagree at all, because I think there's a pretty hard line kind of view perpetuated there. I was listening to an interesting podcast the other day, and the guy had been to one of that I can't do the name. His like a field day he took, like a tour. It might have been over a few days, and it was in North America somewhere. And the topic of giants came up, and old mate Doco man just straight gone. No. Was not entertaining the idea of that at all, and I think it's having gone down a few rabbit holes with that. Well, not even rabbit holes; they're not actually that deep.
No, I don't think so.
But I think it's that again fascinates me, and that was one of the little amber light that went off, going, "Oh, maybe he's not as open as others."
Well, I feel things like giants, things like Bigfoot, the little people, is to speak to the indigenous and to see the world a little bit through their eyes, and to see that some of these experiences are not in this dimension, and to be just open to the inquiry of, we see such a narrow piece of the world. I mean, we don't even see what a bee can see, let alone a microbe, how it can view the world. Like, our views are so narrow of what we can see in light and in energy, and then we're arrogant enough to say that's not true, when it's like, no, we just can't see it, and we don't have the technology to be able to measure it. But I have some very reputable people in my life that have seen things. Some of them are documented, and some of them they're not crazy people, right? They're not just fringe dwellers. And I feel like this conversation is expanding, and then where is the conversation actually just totally putting people off, instead of, hey, there's some really interesting things that bring wonder and curiosity, because really we know so little. Like, we're rewriting history right now with the discoveries even of Göbekli Tepe, and it's like, why are we so arrogant to think that we know, when so much of our history's been rewritten, destroyed, wiped over? And so I don't have really super strong opinions about a lot of it, because I'm like, we still are learning stuff. And so I'm going to let that kind of just flow through, and not be super judgy about the whole thing, and not be shut down to the whole thing, and bring it.
Put it on the table and just see who kind of picks it up.
Yeah, maybe. I think I'm attracted to people that are doing interesting things and are maybe thinking outside the box, and then just walking a little bit in their steps sometimes, of like, what do you see, and what do you believe's happened in this landscape, and how much do we know?
A word that comes to mind is discerning. So that thing that I mentioned to you the other day, positive intelligence stuff and mental fitness touches on that, that we can be judgmental, which is a place of, I don't know, criticism or kind of
wrong.
Yeah, is that? Yeah, well, good call. And the word that is presented as a kind of a attitudinal sort of adjustment to viewing the world and approaching the world is discernment. Be discerning, which is kind of a neutral position.
Yeah, and I feel like we've lost it, and that's what's allowed fake news and polarization and people just not even knowing who they can trust or where they can look. You can't trust the research, you can't trust the media, and it's like suddenly that leaves a big hole for very dark, extreme conspiracy mentalities that I feel like is a consequence of people just having no trust. And it's like, well, where do you trust? Can you trust your community? Do you even trust yourself? If we think of all of this as the inner and the outer landscapes, that I think it speaks to something so much bigger. And this is what we need for this time and place is how do we become resilient? How do we become adaptive and complex in our thinking and our ability to distill through all of this garbage that's coming at us?
You have very concise answers. You're not giving enough time to make little notes.
Oh,
that's not a criticism. I'm not being judgmental. I'm just letting you know.
You're not being judgmental.
No. I like which was certainly a theme, not judgmental, but the theme. So just for the listeners and viewers' benefit. I was lucky enough to attend a 2-day leadership workshop with your good self and Megan. Megan's surname?
Megan Lannon.
Lannon.
Of Barney Creek Livestock.
Yeah, and so...
My right-hand girl.
Yeah, totally. She's awesome.
She is amazing.
Yes, and there was such a lovely dynamic between the two of you.
Yeah,
and
she's hilarious.
She is funny, and because you're very serious and kind of, is the polarisation?
I'm actually not. It's just
I
have to keep my lid on because I'm very mischievous and I'm very tactless and I'm very crude. And so my public persona is my well-behaved self.
This video will go nowhere, don't worry. So no one's going to see it.
I don't care. Videos go nowhere. Hi, Mom.
So what can you maybe let's just jump into that for a minute because in terms of sort of polarization came up in the workshop.
Yeah.
We didn't talk about giants, unfortunately, but
that's another workshop. I had to twist Charlie's arm just to get into a leadership one. He's like, I got leadership. I don't need to
No. Okay, can I start just to deflect that one? No. Thank you for saying so. And I so enjoyed the couple of days.
Oh, good.
It was so much stuff was some of it was a reminder, which is always good. Yeah. A lot of it was new. I love the polarisation stuff, which I want you to sort of step into.
Yeah.
I love the format, and it was interesting when I got there on just as a little deep dive. When I got there on Monday, I was quite anxious.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I kind of had to go for walks at breaks and go, why am I feeling? Yeah, it was a bit like that, I don't know why. And I was trying to put my finger on it. I don't know about who was there, why I was there, should I be there. No, I wasn't sure. I knew I should have been there, but...
It was a pretty powerful group of people.
It was. And I don't know if it was like a defensive thing. I'm rabbiting on.
Well, no, I think that's the first pieces to reflect on this that happens. And sometimes it's just energetic, sometimes it's past, sometimes it's just your body defending itself. And I think... just to reflect on it instead of being a reaction to it is key to this work.
So tell us about whatever you want to, because I think, yes, there was 3 people there.
Yeah, we were twice over what
you're over it a bit. And Phoebe, just to give her a plug, what a great catering job she did. It was more than catering, it was just it was chefing. For the benefit of those who weren't there, which are in the billions.
Sorry, you weren't.
Can you just? Why did you have it? Why did you put it on?
Well, we had planned to run our big agroecological coaching school here in Australia, and it didn't come together. And we are very strong believers in flow. So if something feels like it's hard work and we're pushing, then we're going to change direction. And we actually wanted to just I mean, I've just bought a property, so the last thing I want to be doing is being here in Australia, quite frankly.
How rude.
So Graham Reese and I were doing an event in Orange, and so I said to Graham, I think we need to cancel this event. Well, it had booked out in a week. He's like, you're not cancelling it. And I'm like, what?
As in you thought maybe I just won't go to Australia at all.
Yeah, maybe I just wouldn't go to Australia at all. Yeah. And so then I was like, well, we're here. This documentary film group was coming to Jillamatong. So I'm like, well, let's use this time as effectively as we can, because I don't know when I'm going to be in Australia next. And what is my, I always think about it in your realm of influence. Like where is it I can focus my attention, where the ripple for me and my work can be most effective. Like I feel like we're all here for different reasons, and I feel like my purpose is to disrupt, to shake things up a little bit, and to really empower and enable others that are really doing the work on the ground. And so what is it that I'm doing in my work that maybe I can train others to do so that they can be more impactful, and I can go back and just garden.
You're just like that's like supreme delegation, isn't
it's
it?
Supreme delegation.
You can go and do that.
You be the leaders. You make the impact. You do the podcast. You be in the TV show. I'm out.
So how did you decide what content to put in there? And then jump into the polarisation, because that was a really interesting way to finish.
Which
in
I
a good way.
totally stuffed up. But
no, you didn't get it at all. It's a big topic,
it's a really big topic, and we tried to do probably an hour and a half topic in 20 minutes.
You were flogging the mule.
We were riding the mule hard, is what Megan framed it. Well, part of it is just, I think, through that context of where does great leadership arise from, and where does effective communication arise from. I like Professor Stuart Hill at Sydney University's words. He talks about healing the wounded self, and so much about this is love, right? So how do we not drag trauma from our history and our past and in our epigenome and all of it forward into our communication, into what we want to see the world be? Because if we keep putting trauma into our future, we're just going to get the same outcomes packaged differently as a pretty cover crop or something and still have trauma. I'm not saying that we're going to snap, trauma goes away. What I'm saying is, how do we start to take accountability and responsibility in this generation? And so really building from that foundation of love, of self-care, of looking inwards in order to be more effective in our communication. What is it that holds us back? What is it that keeps us playing a small game? Who are you? You're not that. You're an imposter. You're not good enough. You're stupid, ugly, fat, small. All this shit that people tell themselves all the time is, let's just bubble that to the surface. And we did an exercise, to just kind of bubble that up, and then you go, okay, what is it that we're committed to, and how do we build programs for real transformation by making sure we're taking care of the emotional state as well as this physical body. And it's like, for so long we've just been focusing on the analytical piece and looking at how we're trained, what academia does, what the Western world does, what our language does, and making everything be reduced, when what we need to be doing is looking, how do I expand? And a big part of that is our emotional context, which as Australians, as you you can't cry, you can't talk about feelings. And what has amazed me on this whole trip, and it's why we actually don't want to leave now, is how
that'll learn you
is how vulnerable and emotional the men have been in stepping into this and actually creating a space that then makes it safe for other men to express feelings of love and of joy and of grief and sadness. And to see men cry in these workshops has been incredible. Don't make that stop you coming to a workshop. But
you will cry a lot.
But it's
in tears of joy.
Tears of joy, to see people so overwhelmed in Orange where they couldn't even talk, and they'd come up and they'd just have a few just tears there and not even be able to say how this is feeling, and then just say thank you and walk away. Just so... it's like the world's got bigger, that you can now start to emote.
Well, I guess it's a vulnerability, trust, safe space. What was it that triggered them, do you think? What was why did those guys who probably hadn't cried for 10 years? And shed a tear.
We talk about creating brave spaces, not safe spaces. So a space where you actually can feel like you can step up and out and actually align with what you care about and your actions. And suddenly that gap has shrunk and you can see possibility and you can see taking new actions and see that you can be yourself for the first time in a world that doesn't really, the culture that doesn't allow us to be fully self-expressed. And that's up to the individual, right? You get to choose if you want to step into that and bring joy and playfulness. Like we were out in the field, I was watching 126 people playing. Like they're digging holes and I heard some men giggling. I'm like, oh my gosh, like to see that happening and then to dig, they're in the cow pies and we found 4 different dung beetle species and everyone's hands is covered with bullshit and I don't know.
Something
So fun.
gave them permission to tap back into their inner child or something.
Yeah. Yeah, well, we talked about the value of play and when was the last time you played? They're like, 1956. Okay. Do you wish you could play? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And what happens if you play? What if you play and no one sees? But, it's like we have one small life and we're so freaking significant about it. And we're in these tiny little boxes and everyone's feeling constrained. And it's like, well, who made the box? Oh, you made the box. Do you want to just open the box
Get
up
out
a
of
little
there.
bit?
It reminds me of Patrick McManaway.
Oh, I love Patrick.
What a lovely bloke.
Oh.
He's like in this constant state of of grace and reverence, isn't he?
Mm-hmm.
And such a lovely guy. Mm-hmm. He was here recently in Australia, and he's mostly up north, so I missed him. Oh, Martin!
Oh, look who's in my garden!
I haven't. I was here 3 years ago. I haven't left. Are they Manders?
Mandarin,
Beautiful.
You're a good
Thank
fella,
you.
Martin. Can I say, just so everyone here's an acknowledgement. Yeah, come around here. What a lovely bloke you are. I'm only ever going to say that once in your life.
Say that once and it's recorded.
Yeah, and it is.
Keep playing it back.
And that we are very grateful that you've opened up your world to us here now. And also, I missed the farm tour on the Sunday, but I was here 3 years ago. And what a lovely thing you're doing with in demonstrating the amazing work that you've done in the last, how many years?
40.
40. Jeez, you must
Slow learner.
So you so you started when you were 50 years old then? Hey, that's biodynamics for you. Look at you. You're 110
Yep.
And he looks what?
15.
There was a lovely young girl here with the film crew was filming Nicole the other day.
Paulina.
And she said, Paulina.
Paulina.
She said, how old are you? And I said, how old are you thinking? She said, 63. And I went,
You were like ready for that compliment.
she was a year early. But,
62, eh?
I'm 64.
64. Oh, she was
When
the
I'm
year early.
64, yeah.
Yeah, so at least
Good
you
on
went younger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Only
He was
6
hoping for another
months.
decade scrub from the file. So thank
welcome,
you for that.
And I do love having people here because it gives you meaning. What's the point of me having a little island all to myself? And I learn from everybody, particularly wonderful people like this beautiful lady. And she gives me great compliments, which just feeds my soul.
He thrives. He just grows
We
an
all need
inch
to
every
water
time.
our little inner plant.
Totally. Which I love that yesterday, the day before, you mentioned inner landscape. I hadn't heard that expression. It was beautiful. I loved it. Inner landscape, outer landscape, and then nurturing the inner landscape, which is not dissimilar to a Steiner kind of thing about internal cultivation and external cultivation.
Or above is below. A below is an above.
Above is what?
What do they say?
As is.
As is, below is. What is the quote? Anyway.
Yeah.
That one.
It's bringing the above and the below together.
No, this is as above, so below.
Yeah.
Right.
Which I think is a Steiner, isn't it?
Which is
Well,
kind
a
of...
lot of
which
these
is,
things. Who said it?
Could be
Thousands of
as
years
in
old.
your heart, in the soul. This week, actually, after having an event out at Tomboro with Nicole, I was driving back over the hill, and for the first time I felt Jillamatong's now teaching me. Because I often feel that I haven't done that much, but I stopped killing.
It's a good start.
And encouraged, and put inoculants out there, and it's grazing management, those sort of things. But it's now Jillamatong's got to a stage that I can't stop it growing and building.
Yeah.
Well, you've created a window for it to teach.
Shine.
Yeah. Well, I guess you've got its health to a point where it can now kind of reciprocate.
Yep.
I dare say. I'm just going to stick this on because we're out of the sunshine.
Recovering from fire and flooding, right? So that rebuilding, that it can now do itself.
Yes, and it did.
And you've
I was
set
just
it up,
showing
right?
this crew out here photographs 2 months after the fire where I had luscious grass that come back, no weeds. And that's because the soil's got the life there. And as we're learning from Jane, there's all this communication happening from the fungi. And well, she's more in the spiritual. Nicole's saying how the wood wide web is talking to everything. And I'm just starting to feel that. You go into places and you think, wow, this is really alive. And that's exciting.
And it's not contagious is not the right word. I used contagious yesterday, I think, on a few occasions, but it's kind of it's all.
Don't go there.
Actually, I might go there.
You might go there just for fun.
It was for fun.
Yeah.
No, well, yesterday we sort of touched on it. Then
we did.
Then you very diplomatically.
Well, no, I just think observe the energy of there's certain topics that are taboo. Let's poke on them. Why? Let's keep poking. Get over yourself.
Stir up the bear.
That was interesting. I better go
All right,
and do
hey,
this.
Are you good for me to keep your phone? Are you comfortable with that?
Oh, all right.
I'm not gonna check out your whatever's on there.
Yeah.
Do I need to know?
We mainly look at regen form.
Regen porn.
Regen porn.
You saw
What's
it.
that?
You'll see all
Is
this
that
photo-
like bare roots?
Yeah,
it is.
Yeah, naked roots. Bacterial sex.
Bacteria.
That's a thing.
Let's go there. Awesome, thank you. I'll leave that there, and Martin, I appreciate that.
Yep.
Awesome. We might be right, in which case we won't need that. I'll make sure.
Catch you later.
I don't want to spill my water on it.
Later,
Thanks,
brother.
Martin. Have lovely, and thanks for dropping in too. That's awesome. Catch you at the other end.
If I can add.
No, explore.
The first time I ever heard a voice was this property. And so I'd got out of my car, been driving for I had that time I'd been on trains and driving for 3 weeks all through Australia in 2018, 2019.
Okay, not that long ago.
Just seeing the devastation, that's right. And just feeling really overwhelmed by what was happening in Australia and just feeling like literally this place is fucked. Like it's fucked.
In your travels of Australia?
In my travels of Australia. Like I went all along the coast. So I went, I guess, right up to Townsville, went round Adelaide, all through the cropping areas and just seeing the devastation. This is pre-fire. And it felt like that land was about to go.
And that was so dry.
So dry. Just seeing really skinny animals. I mean, you guys were living here, you were seeing it, right? But dead kangaroos, every 5 metres up the side of the highway, and just everything was so parched and brittle. And then I pulled into this driveway. You kind of seen the differences, I guess, as you come up the road. But I got out of my car, grabbed my luggage, just a normal moment. And this voice, clear as a bell, said, "We are so grateful he is here." And I went in and I said, "Hey, Martin, not sure how you feel about this." And I started crying and I was like...
So you heard the voice?
I heard
voice
the voice it was a woman's voice, super like a bell. And I said, "Yeah, Martin, they're really, they're so grateful that you are here." And he starts crying and I'm crying and I'm like, okay, that's cool. And yeah, since then, I think my... I've heard or seen or felt things much more tangibly than I have in the past. But that was I've always been fairly energetic, feel the land. I can sense when I walk on a piece of land chemicals or compaction or dis-ease.
How does that kind of appear in your body? Do you feel at a dis-ease yourself?
I will feel a dis-ease myself, and it depends. Some places I walk and I feel like I'm walking through molasses or sinking through the ground when there's maybe not, like ley lines on, but they're more like I think Angus Deans calls them the fire lines, where there's areas that have been some kind of historical traumas. I'll feel them as I walk through them. And so I've always just kind of been keyed into that, but I've never heard a voice. So this was the property where I first heard a voice, and I was just like, wow, I feel really, really blessed to have that moment or moments.
Had you been here before?
No.
Okay, so that was like here's a new chick.
And it
Let's
was so green, and the grass was thigh high. He had destocked, and the cows that were here were so fat, and they were so happy. And he opened a gate, and they were all skipping, and I was like, if everyone could find their way to build more vibrant, healthy soil systems like what Martin's done here, and have a water cycle that works, and be rehydrating right up the sides to, right up this, we can see that water moving upwards. What would the world look like? And so I'd gone from feeling like really overwhelmed and just thinking, why am I doing this work, to having that moment of like, this is why we do this work.
And that would have set you up for a lovely stay, couple of days.
Oh, we had a great time. Yeah, no, it was really good to be here. It is an honour, and I think there's properties like this around the world, and that's the gratitude I have for my life as a traveller, to be able to go and see places like this, and then to be able to go and communicate it to other people. That's what I think I'm here to do.
It is a special place. Can you, given you've trodden over it a few times, tell me, because Martin's not here to tell us, can tell us what, I guess there's the physical, he's got contours and he's got this, that and the other, but kind of maybe explore what that actually does for, what is that doing, what's the landscape then able to do, or, and then there's that sort of physical, stuff, but then there's also, is there anything else to add in terms of the voice you heard and kind of the vibe that's been created here?
I can certainly talk about the vibe. I think when you look at the physical things that have happened here, I mean, people always come to me and they're wanting some kind of silver bullet or prescription, and I've got even slipperier at even replying to those kind of questions now. But you look at what he's done here, and there's multi-layers of looking, with the mindset piece, the energetic piece, what's happening with minerals, what's happening with microbes, how you're stimulating that, what are you doing with adaptive grazing management, with biodynamics, and building organic matter. I mean, the whole thing is this, asking the question of, what did this landscape used to look like, and how can we replicate that, and how can we do that in a way that doesn't take a millennia to replicate? And I think if you talk to Peter Andrews, you'll hear that message coming through him, who was Martin's original teacher. And I think we find those original teachers are seeing the world in different ways, and it becomes then who's communicating that piece from the genius spark. And that's what Martin's doing, and what others are doing, from taking some of those teachings, applying them in their own world, and then being able to communicate that more broadly. So I feel like this is a property for communication, and I think you probably need to do an interview with Martin and really dig into the what happened and when, because he's got a great story.
I did. He was actually, and I acknowledged this with him yesterday, he was actually the first person I ever interviewed.
No way.
Yeah.
See, so a catalyst.
Yeah. Well, it was 2019. We were down at the and Joel Salatin was in town and did a Nutrisoil's their annual conference.
Oh yeah, they do a great conference.
Yeah. So I was down there and Nicole, who was here for the last couple of days as well, I acknowledged that to her, that she was very generous in asking me to join her to interview Joel when she was there for her podcast. And then as a practice run, I'm not belittling the interview with Martin. It was just he was available at the time. I went, right, Martin, let's go. And I used her gear and I sat down in their office there, and we had a lovely chat. And then it was a good warm up for Joel, who was the next day, I think it was. However,
to do another one.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is the thing. I mean, it was 3 years ago, and things have moved forward. Because it was actually, bless you, it was actually the year before the podcast release, so it was pre-fires. So that a lot has happened since then.
Yeah.
But that could be a good like part 2 or a catch up kind of thing. Tell me more about the physical shit that's going on here. What's he done? Like, what significance is it? What's it now doing to the landscape? Because just before you do, my sense is this is it's in so many ways, I won't say perfect because nothing's perfect, but in terms of being able to see and identify and understand and relate to what he's done, it's such a good example, isn't it? Because of the shape of the valley and the way the hydrology and the whole thing is. It's almost set up for the model kind of demo side, isn't it? But can you fill in the gaps?
And I think it's very humorous if you look on, because he's been in the news because of this property, even in the middle of at the end of the drought, while the fires were happening, was still releasing 20,000 litres of water out the bottom of the property every day, and that these weirs stayed full even when buckets were coming in to put fires out. All the dams are dried up in this region. I mean, you see a lot of photos of those dried up dams, but these weirs have lifted the water table, so we can see that effect of that water table coming back up and being restored and being able to imagine more what the Australian landscape used to look like. And if you read these papers, what you see is scathing, people just attacking him like, oh, you've dammed a spring. There's no spring here. If there's a spring, it's because of that lift of the water table. There wasn't a spring that he came in and dammed. Oh, well, you've dammed, a major waterway. No, this is not a major waterway. This was, what did he call it? A grade 3.
It's a low, may not be the right word, but it's not a high grade or whatever.
So legally he was able to do it. If he tried to do it again now, you wouldn't, because he's changed this whole water structure and this catchment in this area. With the contours, like he calls them the smiley faces up on the hill. So he's actually planted trees in these contours that they built mechanically, and after the fires, all of that ash and all of that material was collected into those contours, and now you've got this source of fertility. When it did rain, which it rained a lot, you've got water being able to be absorbed and slowly seep through this landscape. It's like everything that we do in modern agriculture is to actually get water off. We have straight lines. We make everything laser leveled. It's like everything is to evacuate water off it, and he's done the opposite here, which is how do we slow that movement of that single droplet of water right through that whole area, and then putting compost in the top end. So you've got compost in those contours so that when the water moves, it's taking biology with it. So instead of having to go out and spread compost, and he is working with Biodynamic, so there is an application to land, having that biology spread, and then also using livestock to spread biology, livestock to really encourage the diversity of microbiology as well as plants out there. So you're seeing that response, and you can see it on the fence line. He was really mean to me when I first arrived here. He was like, feel my grass. I was like feeling the grass, and it was so soft and so beautiful and luscious, and this is in the middle of the drought, right? And I really was just like, oh, thank goodness, this is beautiful grass. And he's like, okay, let's jump the neighbour's fence and feel their grass. And because I'd been like, pat quite hard on his grass, I went pat on the neighbour's, and it's covered in spikes. And I'm like, you bastard. And so I got like these little holes in my hand, and I felt like I'd been totally set up. And it's just that literally the land next door is saying, hey, how about you F off? And this is what we're seeing is you go around the world, landscapes are literally not just quietly whispering to people, they're yelling at people to get off. And if you don't listen to what Mother Nature's saying, she's getting louder and louder and louder. And this is a global phenomenon. So either we start listening to land and going, okay, you want me to get off? What is it that I can do for you? How can we work together on this? Then she's going to start screaming.
So in that case, that land was saying to the manager of that land, who was may not be doing as good a job as say Martin, or
may not be,
or the landscape was saying, well, if you can't treat me well, you might as well just piss off,
basically,
go away, and that was putting up the defences.
I don't think I've ever said the F word on a podcast. You should feel honoured.
Did you say that? Did you?
I did before.
Did you? Oh, good. No, that's great. Look, let's see if we can get.
Especially living in America, I'm really dampening down.
So they go beep.
I had this woman approach me about the book, my book, and she said, "Oh, I loved your book, but there's a lot of cursing in it." And I was like, "Cursing?" She's like, I said, what? I'm sure I didn't put any swear words in it. What did I say? And she said, you said, damn. I I was like, oh, okay, that's a swear word to you.
Oh, D-A-M-N.
I don't know.
Is that
Yeah, D-A-M-N. And I'm like, okay. So, I find a lot of Americans are very polite. Some of my friends, it's taken them like 4 years for them to start releasing their inner F-bombs. And I'm like, oh, wow. So they do swear, but it's very polite on that surface. So it's trained me to just speak a little bit better. When you come out of New Zealand, it's like, the F word is what you put between sentences. That's just how we speak.
There's 12,000 different applications for the word.
Yeah, like the silica. It comes in thousands of forms.
It's a bit, to use your word, polarising, because, I listen, not as much as I used to, just I'm out of the habit of like Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins who swears like a bastard, and others. And then there's others who have reasons for not swearing and saying it's just a very poor way to communicate and whatever. I think it's a great way to communicate. Yeah. So it is very polarising kind of a thing. But no, you can drop
Power
any bomb
language,
you want. It's
right?
fine.
Yeah, I think people in Australia have heard the words before.
Sure. I do wonder when like the people are listening in the car with their kids, and then there's not and whether I should have some more explicit warning. I never have, and I'd say 1 out of 3. Dropping them here and there in terms of guests, but that's good. I think it's you.
Well,
go for your life. You're not in the States.
Let's cut this bit out, and you can put it into something else. But this is something that's really interesting. Is if you think about the power of a word, like the word has so much power, right? And when you look at the origins of that word, what it was in the name of the holy vessel for the Druidic women. So they had a holy vessel that was the. And then what you get is holy men coming in, Christians saying, well, you women are the devil's work, you're evil. And then they took their symbol of power, their most powerful word, and turned it into an obscene gesture against women. And it's like that word still holds its power, but now it's been twisted back onto women and become, so even to say that word, you're like, that is a word that has so much power. And then people can use it in whatever way. I mean, for someone to say that at you is like a dagger.
Yeah, and that's a historical. That's just that's a patriarchal, religious. There's a good combo, isn't it? Religious kind of a. It's a bit like the misinterpretation or the reinterpretation of the Bible, or pick a topic.
Yeah, any topic
that has gone like there's power in this word, there's power in this concept. We actually don't want that power to be with the common folk. We need to turn it into something that is holy, as in only holy men can use or carry that knowledge. Yeah, and anyone who doesn't needs to be dealt with in a way. Is it what's the root of that word? As in, is it short for something else? Like is there a Latin, like a root of that?
It's a good question. I don't know. I imagine there was another word behind it for sure.
I read that somewhere, and it was not dissimilar to what you just said then, Nicole, in terms of what it originally meant, and it probably was the same thing but in different words. So whether we leave, I have to get some
holy vessel.
A holy vessel,
yeah. And then you think about Pan, and that deep.
That's another good example.
Idea, of Pan, and like suddenly we're going to turn Pan into the cloven-hooved, horned devil. You take the most powerful symbol of nature and then you flip it on its head, and we turn that into something to hate as a way of just taking down societies, taking down cultures and religious or spiritual belief systems. And I think every aspect of society, it's like, how do we reclaim some of our ancestral stories? And I think Pan is a really good example of an ancestral story that we come back to, that mythology of connecting to land and the spirit of the land without that being evil.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, because I read a book last year by a fella called, he was Scottish, and I can't remember, Abercrombie was one part of it, and it was Abercrombie something or someone Abercrombie, and he wrote many books, a few books. One of them was Conversations with Nature Spirits, and he talks about how not until his 60s or 70s he was sitting in the Botanic Gardens in Edinburgh, and he saw a fawn dancing around. He's sitting like under a tree, and he sort of, there's a kid in a fancy dress costume, and his fawn sort of runs up to him and looks at him like this, and then he goes, hello, and I went, whoa, the little fawn goes, didn't realise that he had seen. Yeah, and then it was like that was these sort of stepping into that world. Oh, yeah, there's another one.
Well, I'm telling you, thank you. Well, that's the dimensional piece. I work with indigenous communities who have Bigfoot as a very real, very lived experience. They can tell you what it smells like. Do you know what Bigfoot smells like?
You
smell Bigfoot?
I have.
Not really.
I haven't. Let me guess. Probably like forest floor.
Burnt hair.
Oh, really?
Burnt hair.
Is that because when they're coming in and out of the other dimension?
No, I don't think so, because the little people don't smell like burnt hair, but the Bigfoot does. So I'm like, how cool is that? And they said ever since the Europeans really came, like the colonizers came in with alcohol and drugs, which they still do today, which is really interesting. The people are coming into reservations, Europeans, like even the government agents have been told, and they're bringing drugs and alcohol to suppress culture, which makes sense, right? But they said when that started to happen, that they very rarely see Bigfoot anymore, and they said it's because of this dimensional thing. They choose to be seen or they choose not to be seen.
So is that the alcohol and the drugs is kind of weakening the ability for the humans to see the other things, or the other things choosing going, you don't deserve to see me because you're a bit fucked up?
Yeah, probably both. I don't know. But I also think if you think of the word alcohol as spirit, it's the way of introducing the dark spirit, is what my indigenous friends say. So you've introduced that dark spirit, you've opened yourself to that, and then the light is harder to shine in on that.
Well, it's certainly been a major problem in Australian indigenous cultures, isn't it?
Yeah, you see it.
And a tool, no doubt.
Yeah, it's a weapon, right? Yeah. So we've weaponized powerful people and, subjugated them through the use of alcohol and drugs and trauma and crap food, really crap food. So interesting. I was talking to some of my friends who are in South Dakota, and they said during COVID, we saw that breakdowns of the systems, but, the American government has signed agreements to provide food to tribal nations in exchange for land and, access to land. And all that they were getting from the food banks during COVID were boxes and boxes of soda pop, like Coca-Cola. That's all that was arriving, no food.
Oh, yeah, that's food.
Yeah, that's food. But it's that realization of how broken the food system is and how reliant they were upon having food coming from outside, and then realizing they have all this beef, mainly beef, bison on the reservations, and all of it's being exported. None of it was being grown for the local community and to nourish and feed the local community. So that's been a really positive outcome, is seeing people now going, hey, we need greenhouses. Oh, we need to be selling beef within our communities and supporting local, which it's very positive.
And again, that's another wonderful. We're going to just rack up a whole lot of examples of kind of what is that? It's an example of, I guess it's control. There's different agendas. I mean, I don't know where else you want to take that.
Yeah, no.
No? Oh.
I hate the big, like I said, that realm of influences. The minute I start to be concerned about, the cabal or the
Oh, you don't have to go there.
No, I don't want to go there. But like the big systematic breakdowns of banking, of education systems, of health, and like the whole, right now what we're seeing is all of the dysfunction, and it needs to be brought into the light so that we can start to make more conscious, proactive decisions about where we go forward. And so there are some people's roles that are to really expose the dark underbelly because it's important. And I feel like my role is to look more at how do we creatively work through this in a proactive way, and how do we build a mindset that can do that. And so that's kind of where I don't like kind of dealing with all the super negative things that are outside of my control, because that's where overwhelm happens.
There's a lot to be overwhelmed about, isn't there?
I mean, you go and look at some insects and go, oh, going to New Zealand, where are all the birds gone? Jesus. It's like
What's happened?
It's a silent spring out there. I mean, everything's dead. Like, not everything, sorry, New Zealanders, but there's the bird life that I grew up with has gone. The songs that I grew up with have gone. You can put we're the highest user of 1080 to poison
What? Dogs.
Rats and stoats and possums, mainly possums, thanks Australia, that are destroying the forest. But every time you do that, you are knocking that bird population back, and they were like, well, the birds will recover, but they would, except you're doing 1080 again and again and again.
So 1080, I know, I'll get to that in a minute, but
also developed in Australia.
Was it?
Yeah.
Far out. Possums are dying, 1080. Birds eat possum.
No, birds will be picking stuff up, so it might be
like the bait. I just? We had one of our dogs pick up 1080 nearly 10 months ago.
Awful way to die.
Didn't.
Oh God!
Didn't die.
At the mouth and.
Oh no! Well, just very quickly, because this is significant, because it was actually quite scarring, I think, for myself and my daughter who was there at the time, her dog. So dogs are pissed off for the morning. Both came back some hours later. The one that came back a little bit later, he 9 o'clock that night, and my wife was down in Melbourne. We were at Hanamino, and he started howling. And I did, what's wrong? No, he shit himself in the house somewhere, like just black tar shit somewhere on the carpet. Going, I'm in trouble. And then he started howling about 9 o'clock, and then he was just running around like a berserker. And like possessed, and I was going, oh my God, what's going on? And then he's had a fit, and I went, right, 1080. Rang the vet. Anyway, a series of phone calls, and got him to a vet. I probably was an hour and 15 minutes till I got him to the vet. Right, amazing vet. And he said, if you come now, I might be able to save him. Now, he used not many vets know about it. A fellow called Churchill at Crook invented this little thing. It's very simple. It's like sodium bicarbonate, or there's something very simple that you flush the system with. And he put the dog to sleep, nearly dead, the dog, put him to sleep, flushed his system for 2 days. He took the dog back to his own house in his own ensuite in his bedroom and woke up every 2 hours and injected that dog for 2 nights.
Yeah.
And then saved the dog.
Gosh, you got to be grateful to your vet.
He's amazing bloke. And David there at the young vet clinic. And anyway, I do digress, because 1080 is whenever I hear that, it's a physical. Fuck, that's a bad thing.
It's a bad thing.
So birds gone.
Forests, right? So we're seeing. It's interesting. Like, to travel the world right now, we're seeing forests dying in every ecosystem, right? And one of the ways of looking at it, I'm not saying wrong, right, whatever. If you look, say, the New Zealand context, you think about the volume of nutrients that was coming onto that landscape via birds. So seabirds were bringing in huge amounts of guano and nitrogen and all that deliciousness that's in seabird poop, and huge volumes of like burrowing birds that were in the forests of New Zealand. Most of our birds were flightless. They burrowed.
So what do you've got the kiwi, and what else have you got there that's a burrower?
Lots of the seabirds were burrowers. So a lot of ours. I mean, if you think New Zealand really only had 2 mammals, 2 bats, right, and the rest of it was all birds. And those birds, and those birds filled every single ecological niche that we have. Say in Australia, you've got your predatory birds, and you've got your birds that are like mice, and your birds that are like the impala or the kangaroos. They all filled these different niches.
And you had those enormous birds, the
moa. So we had the hugest birds. We had the hugest eagles.
That's from Mandarin.
I'm good, thank you. So you had this huge diversity of bird species that had adapted for low energy environments. I mean, that's why it is birds, because they have hollow bones. Their energy requirements much lower than a mammal, and they've all adapted to this environment. And then you get people arriving, and you get mice, rats arriving, and they didn't have any protection, and their protection is to stay still and be camouflaged. Well, the cat's like, oh, thanks for not moving. You're an easy feed.
Yeah. But
the nutrient loading is the important piece around the forest, because I think I looked at a study in the US saying, there was like 391,000 tons of just phosphorus was being put onto the landscape in just the US every year from birds, and now they're down to less than 4% of that nutrient being returned to land. And that's from birds, and it's from fish, migratory fish that come from out at sea and come up the streams, and then they're eaten by bears, and then those bears literally do poop in the woods. But we've lost these natural nitrogen cycles, and then you think 90% of nitrogen in a forest comes from insects' bodies and their poop, and we've lost all of that. So what we're seeing are catastrophic, very short cycle nutrient losses in every ecosystem around the world as insects and birds are collapsing. So my take home from this is just how integrated all of these systems are, and the value of being at a place like this, of seeing all of that vibrancy and life return. And it's not just you're returning life on your own land, but the impact that this is having not only with life, but with water far beyond the farm gate. And I think that's a piece we all just need to bloody wake up about, is how interconnected we all are. And if you want to destroy your piece of land, it's actually a social issue. You are impacting everyone around you.
And so I guess that's a good example of, lots of insects, lots of birds. They're large parts of the environment and the ecology, but you remove one species, as to say, out of a hierarchical, because it is predatory kind of a chain, there's an impact above and below, isn't there?
Just everywhere. I mean, I think...
In its simplest terms, yeah.
So Jonathan Lundgren looked at, who's the entomologist in America, looked at the connectivity of one insect in a maize cropping situation, and it found it had 241 connections, just that one insect, interconnections to other insects. And it's like... the interconnectedness is so complex and so challenging for us to even get our heads around it. And so I sometimes go, it's so simple. How do you bring more diversity and more life to everything that you do and every action that you take?
So just on that, this is not a linear conversation, clearly, is it?
Well, I just don't think there's a linear thing in the world.
No, now that, because I really want to, everything you're saying, I'm going to have a bit of a squirrel.
Okay, that's another hour down there.
No, I want to explore it all, but I'm just going to grab the last moment there. So biodiversity, let's just go there, which kind of may get back to Martin's Jillamatong here. Is your view, because I want to get back to that one. Your view on exotic species in a landscape. I'm talking, let's just stick to plants for the moment, because I don't know there's many exotic species of animals in the landscape that have, except maybe horses, but some would argue that too. So plants as exotic species that have been purposely, I mean, there are obviously lots of examples of accidental or out of control, noxious type stuff. Where do they sit with you? Is that something we can and should use? Should we exclude them because they're not natural, not native? Where do you sit with all that?
Is it like a native because it's been 10,500 years ago? Is it a native because it's 60,000 years ago, or 100,000 years ago, or 100 years? And at what point do we consider these the new natives, which is how Fred Provenza frames it, which I really like, the new natives. But if we were to think, these are these exotic things, it's like, well, Europeans are exotic to most landscapes. People are exotic to some landscapes. And I feel that because we see the world as humans in such short time frames, we get annoyed because a plant arrives, the biocontrol agent for that hasn't arrived yet, it hasn't settled into its ecological niche, and you'll see rapid expansion of something that's invasive that in another couple of 100 years will be a native. But because we're seeing it in this moment and because it's happening globally, it is something that, is causing real concern, and it's part of biodiversity loss, because we're seeing monocultures form around the world where we see the same grass and the same weeds in every single ecosystem around the world. But my favorite example of this is I was working on Motutapu Island. So it's this beautiful island in the Hauraki Gulf in New Zealand, and it's right next to Rangitoto. So you've got Rangitoto, which is 600 years old. You can see it from Auckland Just stand in the city, you can look out across the harbour.
What is it? Is it 600 years old, as in, what is it? A
Volcano.
volcano?
600-year-old volcano.
600 year old? That's not very old.
It's not very old, no. And so there's actually footprints, Māori man and a woman and a dog, I think, in the ash, because they were living on, there was villages on Motatapu. So Motatapu is the oldest landform in New Zealand, original Gondwana land, right next to each other, which is quite cool. And so there's a farm there that I had been working on, and they have reintroduced one of New Zealand's rarest birds, the takahe. And it's this great, big, massive, fat, nearly extinct. So they discovered it in the 1950s. They thought it was wiped out.
Wow.
And it's bright blue, red feet, red beak, gorgeous, but this big, fat, tasty looking bird.
And it was nearly extinct through
human
the
introduction of predators that we talked about, cats and rats. Also, they have been restoring these bird populations, and forgive me if I get the figures wrong, but I think each bird's probably worth around $250,000 in conservation efforts.
Wow.
Okay, so they're very expensive birds. They all have individual names. They're all tagged. People have raised them from little chicks with these little gloves and very important, significant
Like a glove
bird.
that looks like mummy.
A glove that looks like mummy, so they don't
cool.
associate. And they're very friendly.
That's really cute.
They're so cute. Then we have a bird called the pukeko, which the pukeko has been in New Zealand for 1,000 years, so it's not considered a native. So it blew over, and it's
Where'd it come from?
It's your marsh hen, the blue one.
Oh, the coots or the waterfowl.
The waterfowl. So some of them blew over from Australia, probably in one of your dust storms, arrived in New Zealand and started to spread. Really? And they can fly. And they have been much more successful in the New Zealand environment than these slower, flightless ones. So their population has exploded. So suddenly you've got all of these tall, skinny blue birds with red beaks that can fly, called the pukeko. They are a problem because we've got too many. Then you've got these very expensive fat ones that are very valuable because they're so rare, and they were considered natives. So what they did is they came across the island, and I was there this day. They got a permit to shoot 500 pukeko. Okay, so you've got the head of the hunt club. So it was like a sport kind of thing. It was a slaughter, right? Oh. So you've got men walking in a line across the whole island with shotguns. And there were piles of shells. I was there that day, and I was like, I should be somewhere else because this doesn't feel safe. Yeah. And just boom, 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 and blowing away all these pukekos because you shoot 500. Well, you know what they did? What happened? Oh, they shot? They shot 3 of the takahe at $250,000 each.
Oh, no.
Which do not fly.
They're not even the same colour or size or anything?
No, they're the same colour.
Oh, right.
They're blue with a red beak.
Oh,
One flies. One doesn't fly. So the invitation was don't shoot the non-flying ones. But, you get trigger happy. I've seen people do it. And just you're blind and you've got your gun and there's something blue and you shoot it. And it was a national disaster. I'm not going to go into who did it. And there was a whole inquiry and some people, their heads may have rolled. But the point of this is like, this is a good bird because there's less of it. And this is a bad bird because it's only been here for 1,000 years and it's not native and it's successful, so we're going to shoot that one. Yeah, and we're going to rebalance the thing up here. We can rebalance, and I'm like, where is the sensitivity and it wasn't laughable, but it kind of is, and it's like we're just chasing these systems instead of thinking, how do I restore ecosystem health and function, and then what is the role of humanity in this? And maybe it is to cull and control. Hey, birds, cull and control some. These guys are like, don't cull us. Okay. Are they the noisy miners? Yeah. Or there's an Indian miner and a noisy miner. They're not Indian miners. Because which are the ones again that are considered nasty? Oh, that's Indian miners. Indian miners. Yeah, same thing. And are they introduced? Mm-hmm. Or maybe the noisy is here. Yeah, I don't know. It's like the other day. If they're Australian and they're noisy, they're probably from here. How rude! I know. That's a not. New Zealand's so lyrical. Not unlike the where we had a little Anzac Day service yesterday at Tombara, but with the location for the workshop, and Leah, who is a Kiwi but she lives in WA, she sang
your national anthem beautifully, so wonderful. And then, and she must have done the Maori version, and then she must have done a verse. Maybe it was a separate or the same, but in English. It was lovely. And then we did the Australian anthem.
Yeah.
So there's like 2 Kiwis and like, I don't know, 10 Aussies, 15. And do you think any one of us knew the second verse of the Australian anthem? Leah did, right? So she's singing it out. Yeah, going, we're all Aussies and she's a Kiwi.
You don't have to when you're at the rugby. You just like mumble along.
Or at school. That's it.
Just, someone else's, there's music playing, we're fine.
So more
no
on...
No judgment.
And just on that native thing too, like, because it's a bit of a theme in land care, I have to say, in Australia, where willows, and we're looking for some beautiful examples of them down there, poplar and those water-loving kind of riparian zone kind of star. Well, they love it there anyway. They're probably not. That's not where they always hang out. However,
and now they're a weed, and you've got to destroy it and rip them out. And then what's interesting is watching the destruction of riparian zones that happens after the removal, and it's like, what are we missing? These systems will come into balance. It's just we're in a rush, and we're just in a rush.
Well, right? Peter Andrews, funny you say that, he's just texted Martin on his phone there. Peter Andrews would say...
Your phone, Marty.
Oh, Peter, you can't say that about Martin.
He will.
No, he will, I know. And I remember, I've said this before on a podcast with, I'm not sure who it was, many years ago at Malone Creek, actually, first time I met Peter, and I had a little, back in the days we had a little dictaphone thing you popped in, and I said, Peter, just pop this in your pocket and just talk, can you? Anyway, he did, and it was amazing. So I remember one of the things that stood out was this landscape is wounded and it needs to be put into intensive care, and we therefore need every single tool we have in the toolbox in the medical kit to help it heal. And a willow is a suture on a wound. That's right. And then just to add to that is the fact that some years ago, I'm thinking 10, maybe more, I'm saying up to $1 million, maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars were spent on the Bura River alone removing willows. Yeah. Because of they're a noxious weed, they've got to go, they're not native. And my argument is, there's a whole argument around that, but when people sort of bang on about got to get rid of willows, got to get rid of, we don't plant exotics in the landscape, because they're exotic and they don't belong, and
How do they get things planted when you got exotic things planting them?
Well, this is it. It's like, okay, if that's the case, well, we should probably get rid of the cattle and the sheep. And we've only been here a couple hundred years. Yeah, get rid of the whiteys. we should just, the whiteys should bugger off too. So where do you draw the line? Where do you draw the line? We are not exterminating the willow from Australia. We're not exterminating the possum from New Zealand. It's like the ecosystems will come into their own balance. It just might not be right now. But what I'm seeing is producers that are really managing their landscapes with care are seeing latent seed banks burst to life. We're seeing plants that in some places have been considered locally extinct germinating and thriving as we alter these ecosystems, because what we find is a lot of these plants, like the willows, they're a scab on the landscape, they're a healing crisis, they are there to repair something, and if you pull that one out, there's going to be another one of nature's healers that's in behind it. And so allowing that cycle to go through and I think potentially speeding up that cycle, which is what we're seeing with a lot of farmers and ranchers, is how do we speed up this cycle of repair so that you don't necessarily need these really invasive, perhaps poisonous, less palatable plants to do that healing role, because you are an active partner in this generation of landscape. I've got so many questions. I'm conscious of the time. We could be here for 5 hours. Oh, easily. We haven't even talked about anything. No, I know. That just, warming up. Question number one. That just occurred to me. No, let's try and get back to Martin seeing while it's in front of us. So we've just acknowledged there are willows. There's other exotic species that are... Agapanthus right in the middle, front and center. I know. How good's it? Apparently it's poisonous. I've never eaten it. No, I haven't, because I wouldn't be here. It's a bit, because I know at the school, when my stepdaughter was at the local school in Burrawa, we offered to plant a heap of Aggies at the front of the school, and then the principal said, no, they're poisonous, because the kids would go, a bit like the...
I know you can't feed it to your cat.
Your cat?
You don't want cats eating it.
Dogs fine, cats no good.
No.
There's another one. What's the one that... it's not here. It's more of a... I'm not even going to remember now, but there's stories of someone like stirring a stew on camp with a stick of... You'll know it. I just can't think of the bloody thing. It's everywhere.
Hemlock.
Fatinia. No, not Fatinia. Hemlock. No. And literally everyone died. Like everyone died. The whole because it was like stirring hot.
Take notes.
Yeah, no. Everyone knows that. I just can't think of the name of it. It's bushy. It's all over Europe. It's in Australia. It's somewhere. Hedging sort of plant. So yeah, we've got willow, we've got water, we've got anything else we want to explore about that? Contours. We leave it now.
I think you talk to Martin.
Talk to Martin. I'll get him to bang on about it. So let's get back to. I want to just jump on before I forget, because I think it's a ripper topic.
We've talked about polarisation a lot, and then we didn't.
Well, here's a good one.
Okay.
Mate, this is kind of.
You're editing this, right?
No, I don't. I don't ever do.
You don't. You just go nuts. All right, but
it goes away. It's all the way through. No. Is that like a moisturiser?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You don't need do you ever put lipstick like a coloured lipstick on?
Yeah.
You do?
Yeah,
for special occasions?
Yeah, well, teaching, it wipes off in like 2 minutes. But living in the Montana landscape, it's so freaking dry that you get into this habit of just, if you don't carry a chapstick, you're going to look like you're 90 years old and just have all split lips.
Do you use pawpaw? You know that?
Use pawpaw.
The red, then that red one?
I actually grab pawpaw when I'm here and take it back to
Don't you get it over there?
You know what? I think I have seen it, yeah.
You better stock up. Well, you're leaving tomorrow, so you've got to go to the airport
Go to
chemist.
the airport and get some pawpaw. And tea tree. Big fan of tea tree. I just had a friend, she's been bitten by whitetail spiders. Thank you, another Australian import to New Zealand. It gets so big. They're so big in New Zealand. They're like over an inch, like they're that big. And and when they bite you, you get that skin rot. And she gets really affected by them. And I'm like, I just put a drop of tea tree and they never bother me. And so
you put a drop where?
What do you mean? On the bite.
Oh, on the bite.
And it just got...
Have you been bitten by one?
Yeah, I've been bitten lots, and my son.
Then you put it on.
But I just dropped.
Tea tree.
Tea tree.
Because I've heard I don't know if it's a bit of a myth, but I've spoken to a couple of people and they said the same thing, that every 12 months at the same time of year when you've been bitten, it comes back. The sore, the skin will come back, and that's from the spot.
I have never had that. Lucky to not have had that problem. I think everyone reacts differently, right? And it depends what that whitetail's been feeding on, but...
which kind of then creates the venom or the bizzo.
Yeah, it's not venom. It's like an infectious bacteria. Yeah.
They always in our shoes and gumboots and slippers and things at home all the time, and in beds too. That's probably the other place to find them. Yeah, so there's
no spiders in Montana. There's like...
Because you don't like spiders, do you?
I'm not. I'm a lot better, I think, from just being around nature all the time. When I was a child, I couldn't even look at a photo of a spider in the book. Was that arachnophobic?
Why? I'm not saying like why. That's silly, but no.
What's wrong with you?
That did sound...
I'm not afraid of anything.
That did sound a bit like that. You loser.
Loser.
No, but is that why? Is that like a genetic thing? Is it
think so. Well, I think it's a primal thing, like snakes. Some people are scared of dogs when they're born. You know, like it's an epigenetic thing to be afraid of spiders and snakes. We know it in our genes. You don't need to be told don't play with the snake.
They just look bad, don't they?
They just look, and the spider thing. And I lived in Hong Kong for a long time, and they were the big poisonous wolf spiders, and they would always get into my room and on me in some way, and I'd almost go catatonic.
A wolf spider? No, they were poisonous wolf spiders.
Okay, my huntsman, they were poisonous.
About huntsman too?
Yeah, I don't know. They're this big, and they're very mobile, and they're bitey. They're not the Avondale spider, like you can pat them from the movies, the friendly ones, the big friend. These are bitey.
Like are they bird eating? Those bird eating ones are big, aren't they?
Yeah, no, they're not fluffy. Like they look like the huntsman. They look like those.
They're not good, and you're clearly scarred.
Clearly deeply traumatized. But
let's get on. Look, before you break out in a sweat, I want to talk. This is again a polarizing conversation. If not, yeah, it is. maybe not for you and I, but this is what I'm going to pose. So do you think, I'm going to make sure I'm clear in framing up this question. Do you think it is sensible, prudent, that we should be willing to give up some freedoms to save the planet? That's I won't extrapolate any more than that.
No. Like, I think the militant top-down stick approach to change and behavioural change to achieve our outcomes has never worked. Think of a single example where that's worked. And you look at what's happening in China right now with the one-child policy. They're in a hell of hurt from some very short-term stick thinking that this was going to solve problems. And this is at the root of everything that we're dealing with, is we think that maybe if we crank down, maybe if we force people, maybe if we tax them, maybe if we have offsets, all that bullshit that's happening right now, none of that leads to true transformational change. And that's why at Integrity Soils we're so interested in how do we train the thought agents and the change makers and people that are involved in making some of these decisions to just pause, start to work through how do we really create the outcomes that we want. Because I think some of this militant behavior that we've seen to protect the many at the cost to the few, deeply down had very good values at the basis of it. You know, like we do want to take care of people, or, you know, we want better environmental outcomes, so we should tax farmers, which, oh my God, you want stupidity in action, something like that? Like you're going to tax the people that are providing the food to your plate, and you think that's going to change behavior? It might, but it's only a change, and it might only be temporary, and it's not going to lead to the whole-scale transformation that is required in landscapes. So, I don't know, you want to get my bee in a buzz, that stuff just annoys me.
Well, I want to explore it a bit, because, not just to piss you off, but because I think it's it's something I haven't thought much of. I mean, I have opinions, and I'm trying to be discerning about all that, but something came up for me the other day where I was asked that question, and I wasn't ready for it. And
I wasn't ready for that either. No. It's a great question. No one's ever asked me that on a podcast. Or ever.
So we'll leave it there then. I've got that question now.
Good,
that was lovely.
Okay.
Thank you. No, my straight answer was no, and then but I wasn't quick enough to then. I said, I guess, turn that question back around and ask, well,
what do we want?
Well, do you think we should be, prepared to lose freedoms, and why? So. Is there any examples of that you kind of? I know this is a bit. I'm prodding and poking just because I'm quite not sensitive. It's a thing that needs to be workshopped. No, it doesn't. That's the wrong word. I like it. I like exploring it because I think it's healthy to explore it.
Yeah, it is healthy to explore it, and then asking them multiple questions of why. Getting to the root of why is something important and what's the values that are underlying that, and then really thinking of how do we come at some of these things with a very long-term focus, like a 1,000-year sustainability vision. What does it look like? And we're designing so many of these things from this paradigm that we're in right now, which is this mechanistic, reductionist, chemical soup that we are trying to then have something born out of while we're in it. Like, I'm going to fly in a plane tomorrow. Right, you think about the potential destruction, and my father's a pilot, and they know what's going on up there and how negative that impact is up in the troposphere. And we're going to talk about putting ethanol in there instead, or just like we're just switching one input for another instead of thinking how do we redesign our systems. And that's what's required, is a redesign of all of these structures that are not going to change just because you changed an input. They're not going to change because... Like you look at like the big Black Friday sales they had in the US last year, biggest of all time. It's like, while we're more aware of consumerism and greed being at the basis of this, it's getting louder and bigger, because until we start addressing the inner issues that are driving this, which is people feeling isolated, people not looking after themselves, people deeply feeling separate from ecosystems, from each other, and not dealing with their trauma, right? Not to simplify trauma. But this is the places we need to be doing this work so we can start to be really thoughtful and creative in how we're coming up with solutions. And it's the piece we're stepping over, the care of children, the education of children, the health of people in general, the long-term health of people, and then looking after the elderly. All these really important systems are the ones that we don't value and we step over. But that's what's driving all of it. Well, not all of it, but a lot of it, right? We could talk about soil, but we
haven't even talked about it. This is the funny thing, we haven't even got to soil yet.
No, next time.
Do you think? Well, yeah, next time. But no, we'll make sure we give people a whiff of it.
That's good.
So just on that a little bit more. Do you think? How do I say this without putting words in your mouth? Do you think that well, I'll make a comment first. I sometimes struggle with, you talk about inputs and replacement of inputs.
Mm-hmm.
Substitution, swapping out. Mm-hmm. Something I struggle with is there's a called greenwashing. It feels like greenwashing. Like if we start doing this and stop doing that, we're going to save the planet. We're going to insert here. Yeah, that's it. And so there's examples of that. And do you have a sense of that? That's a bit of a driving thing towards where we put it under the umbrella of wokeism, or we put it under the sort of we're all being greenwashed, or there's other agendas at play, or all of the above. Is that something that maybe doesn't keep you up at night, but you're sensitive to?
I just think the minute that we focus on a practice change, nothing alters, because the mindset and the spiritual connection doesn't change. So if we are going, and this is interesting, like you think about cover crops. So last year, an additional, I think, 50 million acres of cover crops, maybe I'm off with that number, went into the US, right? So big drive for cover crops, subsidies for cover crops, and it's just a practice change. Well, then you think, I wonder how much more glyphosate went on there.
Yeah.
Was anyone thinking about that? How are you terminating it? Is that really getting you the outcomes that you want? And maybe for some people that practice change leads to a mindset change, but for many it doesn't, because you're ticking a box. It's like why at the end of the day organics did not achieve what I think organics was set out to do. And I came from within the organic industry, left in 2005, because of this focus on just fighting fires. Right, and so much of what we do, and even in activism, is just fighting fires. And until we address the core driver underneath it, which is the mindset, the values, the people, the philosophy, the paradigms, then we are going to continue on this trajectory. So yes, greenwashing is going to happen. Am I going to stop it? No. Am I happy that some people, allergies? Am I happy that some people are at least thinking about soil health, or they have a new practice that they haven't tried before? Are they buffering their chemicals? Are they, putting a compost extract? Are they improving their grazing? Yay! But until we look at that whole and reflect on that whole system, nothing really is going to alter in any meaningful way. And that's why we're so passionate about our work.
You, the other day, both you and Megan were saying, and it was lovely, that change is not necessarily transformation. Do you want to explore that for a bit?
Change is generally... yeah, so if we think about change as being...
How's your temperature too, by the way?
I'm good.
Yeah, okay.
Charlie Arnott's going to shave his beard.
My wife would love that.
Heaven forbid. The world's like, no! Then Charlie Arnott just grows his beard back. That is change. Nothing is really altered. There's a temporal shock. But transformation is the caterpillar through to the chrysalis to the butterfly. And even if you pull the butterfly's wings off, it does not become a caterpillar. That is transformation. And so this is the piece that we're really interested in, is how do you open a doorway to health and possibility and resilience and ecosystem function and human well-being, like the whole thing, in a way that door can never be shut, because it becomes abhorrent to go back to destroying your landscape or killing something, and that's what we see with people that really have a deep ecological, deep regenerative, however you want to put things in a box, but people that are interrelating with their landscape in a deeper way is you could never go back to then, like, okay, I just have to spray everything out because I have a pin rush down there. Nah. So that's the piece that we're looking at, is how do we shift here? Because shifting out there doesn't do us any good. And the offsets that we're seeing around the world and the carbon trading, it hasn't reduced any emissions. People have gone and planted some trees which have then maybe burnt down, or they're ripping off the system and they're getting carbon credits for trees that were there anyway. None of this is really altering the amount of emissions that people, and in fact the emissions are going up. So until we address this piece, yeah.
More thoughts on the carbon economy? I mean, maybe it's clear already, but
I think it's kind of clear already. Well, I think if to look at what is happening right now, yay, are we happy that people are talking about carbon? We've been talking like kind of 30 years for myself about, or just less than, what is going on. Like we need to talk about soil carbon and the value of carbon, and that carbon's not a pollutant, but it's switched to now it's a pollutant. And I think at the root of it, if you think about it,
nasty carbon
is we are
poisonous. Carbon-based
organisms. We are vilifying ourselves. The attack on carbon is an attack on self.
Ooh.
And so until we start to see that actually we are on a carbon-based planet, carbon is energy, carbon is potentially, there's an imbalance, and we have an excess of carbon in some places and not enough in others. If you think we may have potentially lost 200 gigatons of carbon off landscapes, and that has gone either into waterways or up in the atmosphere since the first plow was developed, right? So we've just been losing carbon, not losing it like it's gone, it's just been reallocated to other places. And I don't think carbon's the biggest driver for climate change anyway. I think it's land management and water, right? So what are we doing here is actually the biggest impact on global climate variability. And so getting people reconnected to these very real things that you can see, instead of, I need a carbon scrubber to solve a problem that's not real, because it's not the problem, right? We need to be looking at the whole system. And it's so easy for carbon because, we can measure this piece in the atmosphere and we're going to pay you for this in it's coming out of your engine. It's like and I'm not going to talk about what I did with my vehicle, but my vehicle in the US, right? It's a 350
Ram? No, Ford, yeah.
To tow my trailer.
Dual.
No, I sold my dually because it's really hard to get in and out of towns, and it's my only vehicle. So I had to get rid of the dually, and I kind of miss it because it's a great vehicle for towing. But they have these, emissions system that they put into your engine so that you, they pump that carbon dioxide back through the engine to reduce the amount of emissions that are coming out.
Yeah, sort of recycle or re-extract or something.
Yeah, but the stupid thing is you use probably 30% more fuel and your engine only lasts half as long. So I'm like, what solution is this right now? Like, it's maddening to see that knee-jerk reaction of this very short term, we tick this box and therefore your emissions are less. What a load of BS. So I'm like, can we just start to think more long-term, more whole systems? Anyway.
Is that not like electric cars, though?
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of that. I think particularly if you're going to force people, again, the militant kind of thing. And again, whole systems, how long are these things going to last? I think the technology is improving. But no, I'm not going to be rushing out to get an electric car that's then fueled by electricity from a coal mine.
This is indeed, because, and I totally am on the page there, because I really struggle with that, because you see so much talk about it. Well, you see so much talk. You hear so much talk about it. You see it in the papers. It's, corporations are buying fleets of electric cars for their staff and yada yada, and they're ticking lots of boxes. Mm-hmm. And it's a bit of I won't go into it because everyone's probably so sick of me talking about it, is wind farms and what they're all about, because we battled them for some years and were successful in pissing them off immediately around us anyway, and that's a whole other story. But being sort of sensitive to the swapping out of technologies and what that actually means, and the whole electric car thing is really really interesting. I had one little anecdote I heard. when they did the Glasgow, what was is it COP something last year in Glasgow? Or was it the year before? Okay, electric cars on the topic, and they had
and cows, bad cows.
Naughty cows.
No, so naughty. You're so bad.
So farting and burping everywhere. And so they had electric cars for all the dignitaries and so on, because that was, woke and cool, because they don't want to be seen driving petrol cars. But they didn't have enough charging stations to charge all the cars.
Yeah.
So what do they do? They had them hooked up to diesel generators. Yeah, that was just like
right there.
That says it.
That says it all.
So says it all.
Oh my gosh.
Now I want to. So we kind of covered that one. Any other? We keep. I think you're avoiding it. Polarisation. Give me the sort of maybe not a definition, but kind of the why was dropped in there yesterday in the course, and the importance of it, and the sort of the why looking at it and kind of workshopping it is a good thing.
For me, I think that so much of what we're seeing right now is the outcome of polarization, and what we're seeing are more and more extreme views and more wrong and right and separation. Like polarization is creating separation, and we see that in politics. We're seeing it in it could even be food choices, cows, veganism, it could be vaccinations, it could be in America, it could be guns.
Australia, New Zealand.
Oh, no, we love each other.
I want to get back to
Unless
that.
we talk about rugby. Right, sports, maybe. There's and so you're seeing even like families being pulled apart. We saw this during COVID, like even husbands and wives disagreeing on this, and to the point like you just go your separate ways, and it's like, what the heck is happening? And what's happened is, well, there's two parts. One part is that when we have a polarized view, we believe that our values are being attacked. So it's also called a paradox. It's these two parts of life that are in balance. They're not opposite, but they're things that you need both. So think of the in-breath and the out-breath. Think of summer and winter. These are things that are different. They're complementary. We need one. One doesn't exist without the other in some ways. And so if we consider these either ends of these polarities, is there's deep values of what people care about. And we did this exercise yesterday around vaccination because I was kind of curious. Is that what is it that people really value about being vaccinated? There's this concern about community well-being, about safety, about taking care of each other, about health. And then you ask the people who don't want to be vaccinated. It's about health. It's about taking care of communities. It's about freedom. Like these things are very similar. And then we have different ways of packaging, and suddenly we can't talk about it anymore. And so it's the not being able to talk about it piece that what I like about working through polarity maps is we can get really interested in what are your values? How do we maintain those values and still be able to move forward? How do we maintain those values and have a conversation? And so because I've lived my life on the road, or at least I have lived my whole life on the road, but the last 8 years literally without a home. So in my trailer, living in other people's homes, staying with farmers for, a week, 3 weeks. I think one of them I might have stayed a couple months, and we're still friends. But like through that, how can I be present to what people care about and listen and be curious with any topic? So I can talk about anything, and I don't have to agree with you. I have my own opinions, but I can listen to what is these deep core values. And so when we're looking through, as we move forward and we're transitioning, how do we maintain some of these values that are really important to people and still be able to take steps forward in a way that stops this pendulum swinging, as extreme as it is, because the extremity is getting worse. And then what's going to happen is the action might be to solve that as more militant behavior, right? We're going to push it all this way. And that doesn't actually solve anything, and it creates more negative unintended consequences. So I'm really interested in how do we bring love and connection to these kind of conversations, because you can see where the pendulum's going, and it's kind of not cool.
Hey, you know what we're going to do?
Get out of the wind.
Can we just move it over there?
I don't know, we can try.
Let's do that.
I thought we couldn't. Oh,
You gotta entertain everyone while we chat. Just don't trip over that thing there.
are you honestly saying you don't?
What? No.
Table move.
People love this shit. That's the get it going.
Is that over the wind? Yeah.
That's better. Yeah, that's much better.
So people are like, yeah, I love it when you move tables.
Well, that's a first. Actually, that's a first. That is a first. Yeah.
I was there when Charlie Arnott moved the tables.
Yeah, doing a wee halfway through is not new.
No.
So.
I didn't know you were going to just leave it running.
Yeah.
Sorry, everybody, but
No, people love it. I was talking
I
to
have
someone.
the farmer's bladder because you can just jump off your horse and pee and
Just do
yeah.
wheeze. Well, someone yesterday said they actually that reminds me of another question. They love the Zach Bush interview. Who he did 160 interviews last year.
Oh my gosh! Yeah.
Podcasts.
Yeah.
Well, I guess podcast / interview, and which is amazing. And I was thinking, how do I make that a little bit different? You know, I guess the difference may have been no editing. Anyway, someone was saying how it was lovely how because we were sitting at the farm at Byron Bay on the veranda there, which I've done a few interviews at. And we were chatting away, and just at this really perfect moment, you know, he's talking about nature as he does so well, and these two kids turned up. I went, hi, what are you doing? What are you doing there with microphones? And we're going, oh, we're doing a podcast. What's that? Oh, we ask each other, ask questions, and it was just such a beautiful thing.
I like that.
It was so lovely, and
I wouldn't have cut that out. I didn't cut out the wee.
No. Oh, you know what they did the other day? I was interviewing Shanna Wan. And I'm sure she won't mind me saying this. And which you might have to cut out your wee there before because she had the mic on and she went.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, that's better than the time that I had a mic on and I projectile vomited during a class. It was awesome. Ran down this woolshed steps. I actually said to everybody, I think I'm going to.
Oh, they heard it because there was one of those
surround sound projectile vomit. Luckily, everyone sprinted for the speakers and turned it off after the first one, but that's from dairy. Milk poisoning. I'm allergic to milk.
Oh, really? Mm.
Anything out of a nipple.
So, okay.
I haven't tried cat or dog, but anything out of a nipple is not good.
Is that been a lifelong thing, or is that a more recent thing?
Well, it got worse once we figured out what it was. So once I came off the milk, now I can't touch it at all. But my whole life, it's just been headaches, nearly every day. Headaches.
So that was a dairy, like a cow dairy thing that
anything
originally?
Out of a nipple.
Really?
Even my mother's milk.
Is that a genetic thing?
It's an epigenetic
your mother's
thing.
Milk.
Epigenetic. So I have the MTHFR gene, which is also known, kids close your ears, as the motherfucker gene. And about 40 million Americans have this gene. It may not be switched on or off, but what this gene controls is the detoxification of your liver. So my liver doesn't detox properly.
So wow. That's serious. And so what were the symptoms when you were on the boob when you were little? What were you?
Reflux and puking.
A lot of puking.
Puking.
So maybe that goes on a lot more than people appreciate.
Oh, I think so. And you can get a blood test to identify it. Just doesn't tell you if it's on or off. But if you have problems detoxifying, it's why I got so sick when I got poisoned with paraquat. Is I can meet farmers that are like, I sprayed myself in paraquat, I'm fine. And I'm like, I was hospitalised and suffered for 15 years.
Tell me about that.
Well,
were you happy to talk about that?
I was walking on the side of the road we're guessing. So as a Kiwi living in Hong Kong, I used to run around barefoot because we're New Zealanders and Australians.
And you're in Hong Kong because your dad was a pilot,
Dad was a pilot. Yeah. So, and I must have had a cut on my foot or some way for the paraquat to enter your body. So paraquat is a residual herbicide. There's no antidote for it. When it enters your body, it will never leave unless you do what I do. And then it's one of the leading causes of suicide in third world countries because there's no antidote. So if you drink that stuff, it's going to be nasty. You're going to die.
When you say if you drink that stuff,
yeah.
Oh, so people drink it drink
it to kill themselves.
Oof.
Which don't do that. That's not cool.
That mightn't be a very nice way to. Like that'd be pretty.
No.
Yeah.
So they thought I had meningitis. My neck froze. Migraines, and the migraines really didn't stop after that. I could have maybe 4 migraines a month. And they're debilitating, those things. But it looked like my C1, C2 fused. And then for the next 15 years, my muscles were like rocks. Like you couldn't massage. Like it was just rock.
So this is in your teens, early 20s?
So 15 it happened. And then people just thought I was just a grumpy teenager, and then I like foggy brain, just a bit dopey. And that lasted until I was 30 when I met a chemical detox specialist who used radionics, and he's like, oh, you've got paraquat poisoning. And I'm like, what? And we did hyperbaric chamber, intravenous vitamin C. The stinking grey stuff came out my nose, and it stank like chemicals. Like, it was disgusting. And it came out my nose for like 10 days, 15 years later, because it sits in your spinal fluid and in the brain. All around that.
So it possibly came through your foot, came into your body via your foot.
Yep, and then passes the blood-brain barrier. And
a paraquat, for those who don't know, is a plant herbicide.
Mm-hmm. And it's banned in many countries. They just re-released it in New Zealand, I believe. I haven't checked. I didn't follow up, but it was banned in New Zealand, and I think they've actually got it readmitted.
And it's a selective or broad?
It's a selective.
Yeah, I'm sure we used to use paraquat. I'm familiar with it, not because I went to uni, but I'm sure we used
it.
No, in my.
But what's really interesting is the guys that tell me that they're fine and they've sprayed it their whole lives. You ask them about their kids, and their kids will have leukemia. Their kids will have ADHD. Their kids will have learning disorders, autism, the whole spectrum. And now what we're seeing is epigenetically, the research is coming out to show that fungicides and herbicides alter the genome, so how the gene expresses itself, so that your kids have reduced resilience, are more likely to have chemical, food, allergies, all the rest of it. And it's just humanity. We're not very good at responding to things that are chronic. We can respond to the acute. You break your leg, go to the doctor. But things that are affecting the genome are now going to alter that for 3, 4, the research has shown in nematodes anyway, 25 generations are being altered by that switch of a gene. And so I think we're going to see some of this stuff happening increasingly until we clean our act up. And that's why figuring out what's going on for yourself, going and doing things like, infrared saunas, fulvic acid, binders. I know Zach Bush talks about that, but...
About which one?
Oh, binders. The fulvic acid.
Fulvic acid. So tell me, just because as part of the educational element of this, can you, you don't have to give us all the exhaustive detail, but in terms of what you did as a detoxing, you mentioned
hyperbaric chamber, intravenous vitamin C.
Yep.
So you can do that in Australia. You can do it in Portland in the US. There's more places opening up in the US doing it, and New Zealand and Takapuna, there are detox specialists. But go to a specialist, like if your body's full of ag chemical, which many, farmers, if you had, your back was covered in dye when you're spraying herbicides, you've got it in your cells. And so working with someone, because detoxification can be really hard on the body when you first start. So you need nutritional support or homeopathic support or whatever works for you. But do
you know any doctors in Australia?
I don't know them personally, but I know that you can get this done.
Okay, because we might try and find some, put it in the show notes or something.
Yeah, I would connect with someone that can actually do some detoxification, because it's probably the main thing people contact me out of the book. I'm like, here's a book on soil, and all these farmers are like, I am laden. If you're foggy brain, if your memory's not very good, if you just, digestion systems, headaches, just feel like crap, you've probably got ag chemicals all through you.
So an intravenous vitamin C, it seems to be has such broad application.
Yeah.
To
I think it's
everything.
Phenomenal. I mean, I've been told different things. I haven't looked into the actual research literature, but this idea that a healthy cell can break vitamin C down and an unhealthy cell can't, and it forms a chemical reaction that releases hydrogen peroxide and kills that cell.
Oh, hang on. The bad cell or the good cell? The bad cell, yeah, because hydrogen peroxide, that was another thing with nasal sprays and COVID and everything, wasn't it? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I do like the vitamin C. I mean, it changed my life. I'm forever grateful.
And then, so hyperbaric, vitamin C, did you mention something else there?
We did homeopathy, so there was homeopathic support, nutrition, and then it's a journey, right? Like your soil, it's a journey. So I think all of us have our soil health internal journey for the body.
Should we get to soil finally? Do you know a bit about it?
Soil.
Do you do stuff with soil?
See you next time.
That's it. That was not the soil interview with Nicole Masters that we thought we were going to have. So I don't know. I mean, where do you want to start? Oh, I know I want to start. I just want to ask you a question because it came up yesterday. We've been
talking for an hour 47. Everyone's probably left at this point.
Do you need to leave as well?
No,
I'm really enjoying this, I have to say. And you don't have to.
Our tour's not back.
They're not back. Martin doesn't need his phone. He's not going to be happy with all the text messages from Peter Andrews, though. So let's get to soil. But before we dig into something was mentioned the other day at the course. This is at dinner last night, or maybe at lunch or something. Mm-hmm. There's a word that starts with A, or there's a creature that starts with A, and it's not bacteria or fungi.
Okay. Yeah.
That's it. Mm-hmm. Tell me about that.
It's interesting that they've always lumped archaea and bacteria in the same category, and now we're beginning to realize archaea, they look very similar to bacteria. Their cell walls are totally different. They are often called the extremophiles because they were found in the most extreme environments. And one of the arguments is these were the first organisms on the planet, which is what archaea means, the ancient ones.
So when you say extreme, we're talking what, Antarctica or something?
Yeah, we're not even more extreme like that. Like the bottom of like thermal hydro vents in the ocean, the hot springs in Yellowstone. It's what gives the Yellowstone hot springs all its colours. Salt marshes, so you see the different colours. You fly into San Francisco, they've got the salt ponds there, they're all different colours. Those are all archaea. And they're in your gut. But interestingly, they're some of the most common organisms in healthy soil, so they're not just extreme organisms.
More?
Yeah, no, that's it. That'll do.
That's enough?
Well, it's interesting because
I don't think it's fascinating that these things are. They're not. They're like their own little thing.
They're more related to an animal than they are to a bacteria, which is really interesting. So they're totally separate.
So they're like another phylum or something.
Kingdom. Not a kingdom. Phylum.
Kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. It's the only thing I remember from science.
So you wanted to impress me, you just did.
I did. Yeah. I had that written here again. Yeah, that was the second time. The first time was about the meddler. no, because I always have to. It's a bit like the ABC. Like if I'm trying to work out what's after F, I have to run through the whole alphabet. Well, up to that letter to then work it out. Mm-hmm. And it's a bit like that to work out the.
Why did you ask about archaea?
Because it came up yesterday and I never heard of it, and I was and it was like, oh, it's not a fungi, it's not a bacteria, and it's not an animal, it's not a plant. I was
and it looks like bacteria,
right? Mm-hmm. But from what I gather, a pretty important part of the.
Very important, and of your gut and on your skin and everything around us, right? So it just comes down to, I guess, naming things and our need to name things, whereas I'm more interested in the function piece. And then you think about viruses. Know nothing about viruses. 8% of your genome is viral.
Yeah.
And it's like how much of your body is because of viruses, and then how much in the soil is viruses, and we know nothing about what they're doing. We know that they control bacterial populations and that a bacteria will live forever, and the reason it doesn't is because a virus will take it out. Otherwise, it'll just keep on living. So there's all this phenomenon that's really important when we think about soil health, and we know very little about it, and then do we need to know anything about it at the same time? Like function.
And you hear the word virus now and everyone goes, oh, bad.
Oh, bad. Yeah, well, it's like bacteria. Oh, bad. Or nematodes. So like 5% of nematodes are named, but 95% of the research goes into that 5% because it's all the bad guys, right? So generally if a nematode has a name, it's because it's bad.
Because naughty, yeah.
Or they're studying it. So it's our focus on what's bad, and then maybe we'll make a product or maybe we'll kill it, and we're back in that old reactive world that we are shifting out of.
I want your reaction when I say soil, because I don't know where you want to start. I mean, you could, for those who want all the detail, you can purchase a copy of For the Love of Soil.
It's also an audio.
It's also an audio, which you read out.
Yeah, that was fun.
And so we don't need to rehash the whole thing because people can do that in their own time. Is there anything that you want to highlight about soil? You mentioned function. Do you want to talk about function of soil? I mean, I don't know. Where do you want to start? Because I can be really specific.
It's like asking someone about their kids. Where do you start when we talk about soil?
Okay, let's get back to your son. Mm-hmm. Not too personal, I hope. Did he, with your paraquat stuff?
Mm-hmm.
Was there epigenetic kind of stuff?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think because we came at it proactively, I think we managed issues that for other people are insurmountable. Like, he's never got a formal diagnosis because I felt like a label wasn't going to help his behavior. And we really managed some of his behavioral imbalances, let's just say, through food. So he didn't have sugar or wheat until he was over the age of 12. Bombing.
You're still going.
And no, let me finish, Martin.
Peter Andrews is going to kill you.
Has he been ringing?
No, he just texted. I haven't read it. I haven't read it.
46 minutes ago.
46 messages.
I think we'll be right. And my
back.
phone seems to be right. Everyone's back from the
We've
farm
been told we
tour.
need to get off.
That's all right. We're all part of it.
World famous.
Hi, team.
Look at them.
On your podcast.
Yep,
Yeah, this is the only time you will, Jake. I tell you. All previous invitations are null and void.
Yeah, inside. Nothing like being bombed by a bunch of farming pros.
But good people.
Good people.
So didn't.
I managed. Like he felt like life was pretty hard because he couldn't eat all the bullshit that other kids were eating. So, he's 22, and at the time there wasn't really gluten-free options. There wasn't really sugar-free options, and I'm not the best cook. Well, I'm a better cook than I was then, and so, life was probably pretty simple. Like he felt like a little separated from other kids because if he had those foods, he was out of control.
Yeah. So behavioural was the main way that came out.
Yeah, and so
that's a lifelong thing. Like
well, it's interesting because we talked to a doctor when he was 12, and he said because he hadn't had that early damage to the gut and the villi, then actually he was in a better position to eat foods now that he eats that he couldn't have eaten as a child. So, yeah.
You'd limited the damage or the longer term damage. It
limited the damage, and then it's his choice, right? So when he was 12, I'm like, you now get to choose, because if there's consequences from your behaviour, you're going to go and manage it for yourself. I'm not going to manage. Which is
a bit, I think it was touched on yesterday or the day before, it's like you've got to have my words, a few challenges, the black and the white, to kind of then create the boundaries for oneself. We didn't talk about in the case of food yesterday, but I think we talked about kind of, it's a bit like the polarisation, isn't it? Your good times, your bad times. So back to soil. Tell me, how do you want to? I don't know. How do you want to approach it?
Good about.
Say something. Is there anything good to say about soil? What's your favourite soil?
Oh, my favourite soil. Oh, I think I have two.
Don't one get offended.
Oh,
okay?
Come on! I'm gonna make some soils really upset right now. I do have a soil that's on the edge of Glacier National Park. It's this deep, dark, deep prairie soil that you just keep digging, and you're going through black soil, and you're going through black soil.
How far was one dig?
Well, this is what we're trying to figure out. Is there was a bear den on the side of a face, and the den went straight sideways through the profile, and we made sure there was no bear in it at the time, and we climbed in.
So you actually got in it?
And got in it,
cool.
and it's this fake, like you can see it, and then we were 30 feet down, and we're digging sideways into soft black earth, and like you could just, it's all above you, the roots are all coming through. It was just, it was so stunning, and the smell of that and the rebound of that, and the bear in there was quite funny because every Thursday night when he was in the den was calf night, and he would come out in the middle of these pastures and take a calf, and it was like just regular as
he would come out, he would take a calf.
Take a calf.
Oh, like the salad bar or the smorgasbord. Like I'm going out to get another calf.
And so they had this great big trap to catch the bear, and on the side of it said "Do not enter." And I think the bear could read because they just could not catch this guy. And finally, they did manage to catch him. And bye.
See you guys. Bye.
See ya.
See you, Gregory.
You can say hello.
See you, mate. Oh, very nice. Good to see you.
Love catching up.
Good. Thank you so much for everything. You are phenomenal.
See you. Oh, shit.
And you. All right, we'll be in touch.
Dodgies get hung
Yeah.
anymore.
We'll get on Zoom.
No, you didn't.
Bye.
We'll see
People
you come stage.
have met the most extraordinary
Have a lovely
people.
time. See you guys.
Yeah, this month has just been just so inspiring with the people that are in agriculture that are really making massive differences, and like from, you know, really young people, the older generation that are remembering things that they've forgotten, and just people coming together from different cultural backgrounds, from different worlds, and I know we're all making the moves.
So from someone who was considering cancelling just for a number of reasons, and when you came back, have you been inspired enough to think, oh, you know what, I might just do that, I might come back?
Well, we've just got the first trees going into the property in Montana. We've got chickens about to go outside, chicks. We've got a new horse arriving next week. It's going to be hard. It's going to be really hard. But this winter's been brutal in Montana, so it often feels like maybe I should just travel in the winters and come down.
You could just do the northern, southern hemisphere kind of interchange.
Yeah, I think it's hard when you do have animals, and I'm doing this by myself. You know, my mum's been amazing, and I've had friends supporting me, but when you get a piece of land, you get a bit more grounded, and it's harder to travel.
So why, I mean, you mentioned before, I think before we moved the table, or maybe just after you had not been living somewhere for 8 years, or you've kind of been sort of, in a trailer.
No walls.
So tell me, what does it mean to have a farm? You've got somewhere for your horses.
Well, somewhere to educate too. So, like, we're building an educational centre. The new initiative's called the Underland Lab
on the farm,
on the property.
Awesome.
So it's 6 acres, and it really is just a demonstration of, we'll do different types of composting, different types of plants, and looking at a piece of land that for the last 30 years has been really just neglected. So it's never had real animals on it. It had some goats for a bit, just in one tiny section. But like, how quickly can we switch the soil back on, and what starts to grow? So we'll make sure we are really, I'm not very good at the benchmarking sometimes, just get busy with doing stuff. So benchmarking the journey, and to be back in the position of, where do you start, is quite fun.
And as a steward, like, that's kind of, you that's important.
Yeah, I think so. And I think I've always had animals, and I sold my farm in 2015. So
where was that one?
That was in Waipukaro in Hawke's Bay. Waipukaro means the two rivers where the fungi grows.
Really?
I quite like that. I didn't find that for a while.
That's awesome.
It's so cool. And so, having that property there, and then, that's when I left my husband. But having that place where you're sharing that with somebody else, and you've got someone that, he was great in working on the land and kind of helping me achieve these dreams. Like, he was really great at, like, put up some fence, and let's try this, and let's try that. And so, this is a different journey. It's going to be interesting to see how it evolves, but I'm really excited about it. So it makes it harder to get on the road again.
But I guess that's another chapter. You've been on the road a lot.
Been on the road so much.
This is another kind of what you're gaining, not what you're losing moment.
And I got another book to write on this epigenetics.
Really? Mm-hmm. Awesome.
So if anyone is working in this with their own animals or themselves or plants, then I want to talk to you, because I think these are the stories of people that aren't looking at genetic tinkering, but are working on the plant breeding side or the animal breeding side with epigenetics.
Do you want to, for those who don't know about epigenetics, do you want to give us a little Nicole Masters definition? We always think about, DNA and genetics, and that's kind of the blueprint of what makes you, and that gives you your phenotype. It's what gives you this beautiful beard and the curly hair and the chest hair. That is a gene I don't have. Thankfully. And so, but that gene is switched on or switched off by a protein. So it's your environment that dictates which gene switches on or off in that blueprint. And so, yes, you're born with that genetic blueprint, but that blueprint could be disrupted. Some things are absolutely linked to genes, but and some disorders, about 3% of disorders are linked to a gene that, if you've got that gene, you are going to have that disorder. But for many people, it's actually a switching on or a switching off. Did you make those?
Nice work, Jim.
Oh, what about Nicole?
Yeah.
Has she got some?
Nothing out of a nipple. Nothing out of a nipple.
Oh, you can't?
No. Oh, a cup of tea. I love a cup of tea.
That'd be awesome.
But no nipple juices. Just,
hey, Jim, Can you do that without the cream on it for Nicole? Because she can't have
No, I
anything out of a
can't.
nipple.
No, I can't.
You can't even have that.
They have butter.
You can't even eat the scone, can you?
No.
Oh,
My sad, pathetic life.
maybe a tea.
So the epigenome in my case
Yeah, tell me about how
is
that.
that the protein has switched on the gene that means I can't tolerate wheat and dairy. Or in my case, dairy turns into caseomorphinase, which has the same chemical formula as morphine. So I can't do morphine either. If I wanted to be a junkie, I'm out of luck. So the gene switched on.
Well, that's probably got a. That's good. It's like,
Can't be a junkie.
Great, that's a great medical
That's
condition to
A
have.
career option that wasn't available. And so, yeah, you can have genes in your body. It just doesn't mean it's switched on or switched off. So the epigenome part is what's the signal to switch expression on or off. So we can turn gene expression off, and we can do that through, and there's some really great studies of the way the epigenome can be influenced by love. So just by loving touch early in life for children, that can actually change their ability to be resilient against trauma, be resilient in older life, be less likely to be an alcoholic or drug taking if they get early love. Lots of love, hugs, all that. You can actually change how your genome expresses itself.
It's
which is so cool.
fascinating, isn't it?
It's so
And it makes so
fascinating.
much sense.
You know, and this is book number 2, so we're not going to go too deep into it.
No,
right
we
now.
don't want to give it
But
away.
Prepare yourself. It's going to be fun because we're going to look at how do we actually change these with some of the methylation, even foods that are available to us, or some of the indigenous practices that actually will switch the epigenome on and off. A sweat lodge, hot, cold, all that stuff.
So excited.
So
When is this coming out?
When someone lets me stop traveling, when the planet says now's time to stop traveling and write. Oh my gosh, I love writing. I love snuggling away and just being alone.
Do you write with a pen or tap it out on a computer?
Straight onto the computer.
Yeah, so you can like touch typey stuff.
I can type 3,500 to 4,000 words a day.
Shit. How many
And
words?
then I get RSI.
Put it in a context. How many words in For the Love of Soil?
For the Love of Soil has 92,000 words.
Wow.
But, you can type that much out, but then probably only 10% goes into, the
Okay.
reworking. But I allow that. I've never had writer's block. I just let it go. Just go. Just be like I'm talking to someone. Just go. And then I can come back and edit it. And that book was very badly edited. I do apologize to all of you. But, yeah, I'll probably work with a professional editor next time.
Do you, in your writing, do you like a writing habit like Charlie Massey, get up at 4:30 and he just make himself punch out 2 hours every morning?
That sounds awful.
So that wasn't your thing?
No, but just have a routine of, a routine. It pretty much was just get all the humans out. So I house sat for people on some of the most beautiful ranches in the world, in the snow, and just like went, look after your cats and dogs and horses and feed your chickens, and then I'd write all day.
Back to epigenetics, if I may, I don't know, without giving too much away, but more the granular sort of science. So the protein switches on or off genes.
So think of that protein sheath as over the DNA. So the little X, or some of you are wise. And when they were doing the studies in the 1950s and 60s, they threw the protein away and they just focused on the DNA. And then there was a heck of a shock when they realized that we have less of that genome in the human body is less than a fruit fly. And they're like, oh, wow, we thought that was the secret. But the secret sauce is the protein.
Yep.
And then how do we disrupt that protein? The protein will shift and open backwards basically to allow that DNA code to go out, to turn into, skin cells or muscles or blood or any of that. It's happening all the time.
And so the relationship between protein we ingest, we source, and protein switch or sheath.
Yeah.
What's the relationship?
There's a relationship in terms of health and having, behind it is obviously, full mineral. So eating a high nutrient dense diet, having all that nutrition is going to affect the quality and then longevity and how those cells regenerate. It's all interrelated, right? But the fact that it's a protein means it's got nitrogen in it, obviously. But yeah, it's about whole system health, right? And then we see things like, if you think of rheumatoid arthritis, is the deregulation of genes. And so what's disrupting that switching on or switching off can be nutrition, right? For a lot of people, it's sugar. If you are dealing with rheumatoid arthritis, just cut sugar out for a while. Take a look.
Okay, sugar, not good for us. generally?
Yeah, just like raw white sugar. Not that anything's truly evil. It's just balancing life, right?
Too much. Because isn't there something about, like, yeast loves sugar? Mm-hmm. Yeast can then talk to your brain, talk to your body and go, you need more sugar.
Need more sugar.
Is that
and
how
like
it works?
candida, what I find is I meet a lot of people that are just full of yeast and candida. Young people, they got acne, got cravings for junk food. They want to eat their cream scones, the extra sugar in the jam.
I'm not a kid.
It's your microbes that are doing that, which could be an imbalance. So if you feel like you just have to drink beer or you have to have that whole slab of chocolate or you need sugar to get moving, it's probably a microbial imbalance.
Have you got any tips on forming habits around not eating sugar?
My brother had non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, part of these epigenome in my family, and he decided, I thought he was going to get diabetes because he'd drink like 2 liters of Coke and a bag of lollies every day. And I'm like, dude, you're going to get diabetes. And he didn't, he got cancer. And he's pretty darn sure that it was due to his sugar intake. So he just stopped eating sugar that day and said sugar is poison. And so by telling himself that sugar was poison and having that sense that sugar is poison, every time he reached for that sweetening, he's like, no, it's poison. And it was like that. He hasn't eaten sugar for like 15 years or something. So I think we all have different ways of rebuilding habits. And I think each of us has a different way that works. For some people, it's having an accountability partner or someone that's going to help you break a habit, or journaling it down, or just tracking, your 30 days, or see what AA is doing. There's different ways to break our own habits. How have you broken habits? What naughty habits have you had?
I've still got them. I don't want to break my naughty habits.
Oh, you want to keep those? What are they called?
No,
They're called
sins.
Vices.
Vices. That's a good question. And I'm halfway through a book called Atomic Habits.
Oh, yes.
Have you read that?
Mm-hmm.
It's good, isn't it?
It is good, yeah.
I'm yet to I've made lots of scribbles with a red pencil, and I'm yet to sort of go through some of the exercises at the back of each chapter, but there's been some interesting, it came up the other day, I can't remember where, that must be my memory.
We did talk about it yesterday, like changing your environment.
Yeah, that's thank you. Yeah, there you go. I was only listened 24 hours ago and I'd forgotten. So, yeah, but I have that thing. I know I've had a conversation with someone. I either can't think of that person or the location, which is a bit worrying. But it is, and I love the idea of attachment. That's probably not the right word they wrote in the book, but like if you're already doing a habit, then attach another habit to it, and then you have more associated habits or whatever it is. Like every time I'm having a cup of tea, so when I have a cup of tea, I'm not having a cup of tea at the moment, but I am creating the habit of when I have a cup of tea, I do a part of this positive intelligence stuff, they call it a PQ rep, which is like it's a circuit breaker. Like you with the ears, that would be defined as a PQ rep.
Do this one. Stretch those ears.
For those listening and not watching,
just pull them out gently. Not too hard, but just stretch them out. We're now hooking into the vagal nerve, slowing the heartbeat down, relaxing. It's a good stretch for those dealing with anxiety. And then you get your finger not in the top rung, but in the next groove down. So we got your ear hole there, and then there's a groove. Put your finger inside that groove, and very gently you're going to massage the skin. You're not trying to hurt, it's just the skin, and you rub that. I think it's generally better to do one ear at a time than the other. You're resetting the vagal nerve. So a lot of us, especially I think people dealing with fires, long, like drought, that long drag on the whole energetic body. This is a great simple reset. It's one I do when I feel overwhelmed. And that's like that. You don't have to do it for like 20, 30 seconds.
And it's not like you have to put on special clothes and go and do something. Like you can do it when you're talking to someone.
Well, you could do it on a full moon naked. That would be your thing. That'd be great.
Sure.
You could do that. Sure. So do that. But no,
and that's all you're allowed to pull. Okay, when you're doing that, your ear.
Yeah,
that's
pulling the chick. Right. But yeah, so I'm always really, because in our work we're dealing so much with people that are in flight and fight, in the freeze mode, in numbness. When you're working with agricultural people, there's been so much stress and so much coming at people for such a long, sustained time. I think often we don't even realize how numb we've become, or how shut down, or how overwhelmed. So even when you talk about overwhelmed, people are like, I'm fine. I'm like, well, you're good in COVID. Oh, I'm just fine. You're like, just talk about fine, which is what do they say fine is? Fuck, effed up, insecure, neurotic and emotional.
I'll write that down.
Fine.
Yeah,
you're just fine.
Neurotic and emotional.
So I think there's a piece in there of the importance of just coming back into what we call the ventral system, where now creativity is possible. Like I can feel like, you can even hear it in my voice, right? You just get more relaxed. And for some people that actually can be really hard to do, because you're so used to being hypervigilant and just, looking for what's happening, the threat.
It's funny you say that, because in the world of PQ, hypervigilance is a saboteur. It's 1 of 10. So your main one's judge. And then we all have, there are about 9 others, like avoider, pleaser, hypervigilant, hyperachiever, hyper rational.
Yeah.
And there's a few more, and we all have judges that runs the show.
Yeah.
Judging yourself, judging others, and judging the world.
Yeah.
Like a situation. And then we have our accomplice saboteurs and minor pleaser and avoider. And then we have sort of lesser degrees of the others. We all have them at different degrees. And so
which is a good piece.
It's interesting
to know
you say
yourself,
hypervigilant.
right?
Totally.
Like know yourself, because
know your weaknesses, sort of thing,
Well, I don't like to frame them as weaknesses. I just think they are our armor. They are what has enabled you to survive and get to where you are now. And there's good, bad, and ugly for all of it. But just to know those early warnings, so that you can choose to reset, or you can choose to change the situation, or you can just swim in that swamp because you're used to feeling like that, like numb, or like whatever, walking on eggshells, or working really hard. The overworkers. And what's really interesting to me is that as that state increases, your pain threshold increases, because your body's literally preparing itself for death. And so I talked to farmers who were like, they just hit their thumb with a hammer, and they were like, oh, no, it was all right. And I'm like, no, it really wasn't. Your fingernails falling off, that must have hurt like bugger.
You need a hospital.
You need the hospital, and you're like, nah, she'll be right, mate. No, you're actually in a survival state.
And those traits or those tendencies were useful when you're little.
Yeah.
And then they kind of don't serve us anymore. Maybe not the hammer hitting thing.
Yeah, well, it tells you not to hit yourself with a hammer again.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
And they use the example of, okay, you put a hand on a hot stove. Mm-hmm. The first millisecond, half a second, whatever, is useful because it tells you to get it off.
Yeah, hopefully even.
And then but what we do is we often leave it there. In a figuratively speaking, when we're in a self-deprecating avoider, pleaser, name it kind of thing. It's really interesting stuff. I had, what else do I have for you?
I don't
Singing.
know, we've been talking for 2 hours and 15 minutes.
Do you want to
Right,
finish?
last question.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Singing.
Oh, okay, singing. Oh, hang on. I just want to make sure if it's... Oh, no, I do have one. I've got one from a person from yesterday.
Oh, I like that.
It still looks long, doesn't it?
Oh, a question from a...
From Kate.
From a listener.
From a viewer from yesterday, from an attendee. Please ask Nicole about the comment, and this is from Orange, that long recovery times lead to poor and animal performance is just a paradigm.
Yep.
And then there's
a technical question.
Yeah, okay.
We won't get into that. But
okay, well, let's do the top one.
So what we're referring to specifically is like long recovery, tall grass grazing systems create poor animal performance, poor animal weight gains, poor animal health is a paradigm. And what I mean by that is we can see that is true in a conventional system, right? So when you're operating conventionally, using industrial models, or your set stocking or whatever, if you shut the gates and left that field for a long time and enabled that grass to get tall and reproduce and all the rest of it, if you brought animals into that situation, they are going to lose performance. You are going to get lower weight gains. You might see animal health struggle, right? So that, in that paradigm and in that view of seeing the world, that's true. once we start to build soil health, build microbial components, in particular fungi, we see a change in the quality of the pasture that we're growing. We see a change from a calcium pectate to from a magnesium pectate, which is a low Brix, low metabolizable energy form of a pectin, the green stuff that joins the cells. As we build fungi into the system, they release a bioavailable calcium. That calcium becomes calcium pectate in the cells, in between the cells of the plant. And so when animals graze upon that, we see higher Brix, significantly higher Brix, which is a measure of sugars and dissolved solids and photosynthesis. We'll see higher MEs, we'll see higher weight gains in animal performance. So the paradigm shifts into the paradigm of soil health and vibrant life, then that is now the truth. The truth is you can now get better animal performance off taller grasses than what you could do previously. And so what I find is a lot of the rules that apply in conventional agriculture are true in conventional agriculture until we start to introduce vibrant, diverse life, soil, organic matter, and humus, and just build that structure of soil health. Now those paradigms change.
Can you measure magnesium pectate and calcium pectate?
You're going to measure that more as an outcome. You'll see higher calcium levels in your plants. You will see weight gains in ME and Brix. And
Okay,
yes,
so you can't go,
you could.
give me a measure.
You could.
But that's
You
probably
could.
a bit
so
more
some
of a-
labs do that, and it's just navel gazing at that point, I think. But
Yep.
we did this originally trying to figure it out in tall grass dairy systems, how we were getting such good performance.
Yep.
And so that was some of the measures we were looking at.
So you did touch on that second question there anyway, anyway, in a very clever way. Okay, then, bloody party pooper.
Biomorphic, go on.
Biomorphic silica is magic stuff. How do we get it? Did you talk about biomorphic silica?
Biomorphic silica, you're going to like this. So biomorphic silica. So silica and silicon comes, like silica is one of the most common elements in the crust of the planet and in soil, right? Just silica. There's a lot of silica. It's what makes up sand. And what's interesting is it comes in thousands of different forms. And that one of the forms is called biomorphic silica, or silicon, like a silicon gel. And it's formed by microbiology in soil. And Steiner was onto this because one of the things that Rudolf Steiner promotes was the use of 501. 501 is a ground silica that you put into the cow horn and you spray. So if you get into biodynamics, you'll learn about that. But what's interesting is that one molecule of this biomorphic silica holds on to 700 molecules of water.
Get out of here.
I know, shut the front door. So there's something really interesting, and what we find is if you are cultivating your land, if you are overgrazing, if you're compacting those soils, waterlogging, you lose your biomorphic silica. We lose our ability to hold on to water in a phenomenal way. And so we find you can test for this. It's less than 1% in conventionally managed properties, and they've measured it at 6%, and I don't even know if that's even the best soils. So I think we can get even higher biomorphic silica. And so it's part of, just think of silicon gel. That's what these microbes are creating and converting the raw silica form into, is this gel that holds onto water.
So when you say 1% or 6%, so of the amount of silica in a soil,
Yes.
if you can, 6%, of that being, if it's in the biomorphic state, is good.
Yeah, it would be phenomenal.
Is amazing. And so I guess the higher, then the more silica in a soil, the more potential for water holding capacity.
Not necessarily.
No?
Because you can have soils that are really high in silica and they're called white. Oh, you guys call them the silver loams. They're sand. Sorry, folks.
Our friends in South Australia.
Our friends
in WA, I
Western
mean.
Australia.
Yeah. But is that not, does that create
in
potential?
every single soil, right?
yeah.
It is the most common element. You're not going to have to worry about getting silica in. It's the form.
Yeah.
And that's what
and
Steiner
therefore
was
availability.
playing with.
Yeah, right.
Yep. So drawing in sunlight.
So how do we do that? How do we, if we've got a soil and we want to crank up the biomorphic silica content,
Yep.
we have to activate soil biology, biota activity.
You just asked me the question of how do we build soil, right? So that's
We didn't even. That was like in 2 hours,
again,
20
that's
minutes
like, what
later.
do you love? I mean, how do you build a healthy child? Is what you just asked me. effectively. Because it's all interrelated, right? It's all just the journey of how do we build soil health. Stop killing stuff is a good place to start. Let's do that. And then, go through that whole process of what's been holding you back, what's the drag on the system. Ask the question, is it me? Yes, probably is.
And your new book, is kind of bridging or bringing together soil. How do you build good soil? How do you build good people? Yeah. And that was that's obviously just the order it's happened. Is that because foundationally your knowledge of soil has got you to that point, or is it more your personal experience or both that's got you to go, I'm going to write a book about, essentially human health, yeah?
Well, no, because it's all of it, right? It's why has animal behavior changed? Why are bison, because it's interesting talking to my Lakota friends, why do we see the change in how bison behave? That's epigenetics. It's not been genetics. It's like they talk about animals, you could shoot 30 bison before they'd stampede, right, with muskets. And now you have an animal that's so flighty and so dangerous for many. And it's in the handling, right? We're changing the genetic expression of the progeny through the handling of the mother or of the grandparents of the great-grandparents. So I think this applies to every single aspect. Like, what are we doing with plant genetics? Or what are we doing with plant breeding? What's the environment that plant was bred in? How do we change that genetic expression so that plant will become more resilient, more able to communicate with biology? So we have plants that no longer communicate to mycorrhizae, to protozoa. They've lost their ability to communicate through plant breeding.
Human plant breeding.
Plant breeding. Yeah, just screwing with like it's that single focus of I want more production. It's like focusing on racehorses and going, I want something fast, and then you lose hooves and you lose mental state and you get these mentally deficient horses. Yeah. That's just because you've been focusing on one single selection. So no, I think it applies to every single aspect of life, and it's why I'm so interested in it, and just seeing the impact on my own family and seeing and hearing people's stories. Oh my God, like military stories or exposure to the atomic testing. I met people that like their epigenome is now altered for atomic
testing in Australia?
No, Bikini Islands.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And like seeing the impacts on those families. So you can see it really dramatically. And then, I've met people that have come out of Bosnia. I met people that have come out of, Dutch populations, out of World War I, where they're seeing alterations to the epigenome because of nutrition, because of stress, because of starvation. And then how long does that last for? So anyway, we can't talk about it now because it's still being written, but I'm really excited, right?
So am I. That is such a...
Now someone else is going to write the book before me because they're like, I heard this podcast, so I wrote a book, and it's going to be amazing. And
hang on. If this has prompted you to get...
you might have just put a fire under my butt.
Yeah, that's right.
Because once you put something out, even just in consciousness... anyone could do it now.
Well, isn't it?
They won't even be writing it.
One last thing or two things. I'm just going to send that to the Epigenetics Association of America, just so that scares you to get on with it.
Yeah, but it might be boring.
or made up, or full of all sorts of other agendas.
We don't want it to be boring.
No. Yeah. And then that does remind me. We'll leave on this note. I read a book some time ago called I can't remember what it was about now. It was called I remember what it was about. No, it was the terrible. I didn't think I was going to talk about it, so I can't remember the book. But it talked about the author. I can't even name either. It's terrible.
I can't even guess if you don't even let me know the context.
No, that an idea comes to us. Mm-hmm. It's a gift, and if we don't do something with it, it'll go to someone else.
Yeah.
And someone else will literally write the book.
Yeah.
This is not like a warning or a threat.
No, my stepdad wrote a whole book about blue giant people that were connected to the earth and connected to animals, and they lived in forests, and then they lived with whales, and he even made models, and then he worked on it for like 20 years, and then Avatar came out.
No.
And I'm like, he just could never get the confidence to publish it. And I'm like, dude, you wasted 20 years. You could have been James Cameron. I can show you the picture. He did Avatar.
No, well, in this book there was similar stories of someone who had an idea for a book, or it might have been for a movie. It was a significant idea that they didn't develop, and they literally did the same. They walked into a bookshop and went,
oh my God,
there it is.
That's
2 years later, it was written by someone else exactly the same
anyone
thing.
who's thinking about writing a book, go do it, just not the one on epigenetics. Please.
Yeah, don't do that. No, but I think I'm glad we touched on it because it's enough to get people excited about the launch of the book. It'll put a fire on your ass, and I think it's going to be a really significant publication because of what I dare I say, is going to pull together from your experience from connecting with the soil and animal and the whole cosmos. So I'm really stoked. Nicole, can I say we will have to wrap it up, and I can't tell you how much.
You're still here.
This does not feel like 2.5 hours.
No, like that. We did move tables for quite a while.
Yeah,
we
for a
went to the
wee.
bathroom.
We had other disturbances, lovely disruptions. Thank you so much. I will allow you to go and have a stretch, and then we'll do a quick 10-minute Q&A for our Patreon members. If you want to hear what Nicole has to say about some very probing personal questions, then you'll have to join our Patreon community at charliearnott.com.au.
Do that.
Nicole, that's been so wonderful. I think I'm just so grateful you've shared so many lovely stories and concepts, and I love that we didn't even talk about your life.
Yeah, no, we didn't.
For those, Nicole did.
So please don't ask me, where did you grow up? If I hear that question one more
She
time.
started by saying, "Oh, we're not going to talk about my life, are we?" And going, "Yeah, I'm okay." No, the pyramid set it all off.
The pyramid did set it off.
Does Martin know he's got a pyramid here?
I would say so.
We'll just can't tell him.
Okay.
Thanks, Nicole. Bye.
Bye.
And on next week's episode of The Regenerative Journey, I'll be interviewing Johannes Meyer. He's one of the principals of Danthonia Christian Community up at Inverell in northern New South Wales. A wonderful community of people doing wonderful things, growing their own food, creating a rich environment and culture of food production, and sat with Johannes there some months ago now. But his story is still rich in my ears, given the interruptions we had along the way. But you'll have to look forward to listening to that and all his yarns next week on The Regenerative Journey.
This podcast is produced by Rhys Jones at Jaeger Media. If you enjoyed this episode, please feel free to subscribe, share, rate and review. For more episode information, please head over to www.charliearnott.com.au.